Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of bLU Talk's Amplify Your Message. I am your host, Laura Lake, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Mary Young. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by introducing ourselves, and I'm learning to receive and accept and, just be assertive and start things off. So for those who have never met me before, hopefully you have, but just in case, yes, my name is Laura Lake, and what I stand for is courageous connection. What that looks like in business terms is, how people say, just get people to know you, like you, and trust you, and then they'll buy from you. Courageous connection takes in the idea of mental health first, treating people like human beings first. And so courageous connection means starting with you and that old version of you right in the middle of your struggle moment, because many of us are mess-to-message change makers, mess-to-message solopreneurs, which is where most of the people are today and this week. They've been through some sort of struggle. They're trying to share that message. And on this show, we help them amplify. And at the same time, we get to learn why they've chosen the different ways that they have to amplify their message. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat of whatever social media that you are on, which I will be sharing this to the Facebook page. Remind me to do that, Mary, in just a moment. But thank you again, Mary, for being my co-host. Can you share just a little bit about you and where you're coming from so that when you're asking questions today, people just know a little bit of background?
I'll be happy to do that while you're sharing this to the Facebook page.
Exactly.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mary, and I have never done this before. So oddly enough, I'm not having any jitters. I think it's too early in the morning for me to actually be nervous because I'm usually a night owl. I'm in the Southeast. I live in the Atlanta area. And my superpower is I make people feel safe. And I don't think there's anything more important in the world. And if I had to say, what am I all about? It's, I believe in being ferociously vulnerable. And I love that phrase. I got it from somebody else, but I'm like, I'm taking that one. That's mine. Ferociously vulnerable. I believe in knowing who we are so that we can be truly who we are and not what somebody else thinks we should be. And I don't know what else, Laura.
I don't know, but every time I try to look for it, it hasn't loaded yet. So I may have to come back to it in a few minutes. But
Facebook may be giving us just a little bit of a headache today because, it's Facebook.
It has all week. It's like, no, we cannot connect you to Facebook. But I know that you're there.
Yeah, but it doesn't want to play. That happens sometimes because technology makes our lives easier.
I'm going to try one more thing. Yeah. Look, there we are. Now we're live. Okay, I'm going to share that.
Speaking of technology, I have been a computer trainer, software trainer for most of my career, sometimes hardware, but mostly software. And I am now semi-retired and working part-time at the Home Depot, which has nothing to do with software training. But oh my gosh, it is so fun just to talk to the customers in the aisle and help them figure out what they're looking for, how to do their project, how can they repurpose something because we can't find exactly what we're looking, which a friend of mine says is just like training, and I hadn't even made that connection. So yeah.
The hardware store is one of my favorite places to be.
That's why I went there.
Specifically the lighting aisle.
Where I work.
On those rainy days where you just feel blah, I knew that I could just go into a hardware store, walk down the lighting aisle and just go,
yes.
and face all the lights.
I just keep seeing some that I would like. I just replaced most of my light fixtures recently. And now I'm seeing, but they've got that one and that one's so like, no, Mary, you already did all your light fixtures. Leave it alone.
Yeah. So Mary, our first guest isn't here yet.
Okay.
So would you like me to interview you?
Go for it.
Okay.
Yeah,
You're like, I wasn't expecting this at all. That's fine. I'm going to change pen colors because it's a new day. Today is apparently pink.
Okay.
So here's how I start off every interview, Mary, just to shake up the pre-programmed responses in your elevator pitches. So here it is. If you could have other people describe you in just 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
3 words.
Mm-hmm.
caring, compassionate, fun.
Wasn't much thought on that.
Well, I actually have this little wristband that I wear.
Yeah.
That has my life purpose on it. Live, love, encourage others, make a difference.
Aww. Did you make that yourself?
I did. Wristbands.com, I think.
Okay.
So I buy like 10 or 20 at a time. And that way, if somebody I'm talking, and oh, here, you need this. And I hand it to them, then I go home and put another one on.
Can you repeat what it says on the wristband?
Live, love, encourage others, make a difference.
Live, love, encourage, I can't write that fast. Encourage others.
Make a difference.
Make a difference.
And if I can do those three things, then I'm a success, no matter whether I'm working or rich or not.
Aww.
Because making a difference is what we're all here to do. And we each, I really stink at remembering who to attribute quotes to.
Okay.
But somebody said, we all make a difference in the world. It's up to us to choose what kind of difference we're going to make. And I want to say it was Jane Goodall, but I can't trust my memory. I can't even trust that it's an accurate quote, but it's something like that.
Okay.
And it's the way it is. We all, every day, we make a difference to the people that we meet, and it's up to us as to what kind of difference that's going to be. So I try to be the one that when I'm on the phone with support, and y'all, you've been on the phone with support and you're just sitting there going, I want a human being. Give me a human being. And then you get to human being, you're like, right? Because we're so frustrated with the computer. We're so frustrated with the computer menu. So frustrated with whatever the reason is we're calling support. Sometimes we're ticked because of whatever the reason is we're calling support. And here's this poor minimum wage person on the other side of the phone, and we're cussing them out. And I say we, but I mean literally me. I have done that in the past. I've had people hang up on me 20 years ago because I don't have to take this kind of language from you. I'm sorry, I'm going to disconnect the call now. Yep. And I was so happy that their managers let them do that, because not all managers do. So what I try to do now is be that one that's like, oh, Laura, I'm so glad I got you, because you have been so helpful and you are making my day with how helpful you're being. Is there going to be a survey at the end so I can brag about you? And I try to be that person.
Aw.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'll be like, oh, by the way, if you need me to yell at you so you know you're at work, I can do that too. And that makes them laugh. And, and it just works. And sometimes I'm still frustrated. There are times that I'm like, and I'm like, I'm sorry I did that to you. I had to get it out of my system. And I know that you are not the reason I'm frustrated. And I'm sorry that you had to be the recipient of that, but I'm calm now. So let me tell you what the issue is.
Sometimes I'll start by saying, I know it's not you. I really do know. And I am so sorry for how I'm feeling going into this call. And then you're just like, I need to vent for a little bit. I need to tell you what's going on. And then we could just breathe. And then
and here's the thing. And you just described it perfectly. I took a customer service class. Okay. Some of y'all here on the call were not alive when I did this. I'm just saying, because it was back in the early 90s, mid 90s. And the job I had at the time, I was a receptionist, customer support person. And they sent me to this customer service training class back when classes were live in person and you had to drive halfway across town. Some of us remember those days.
Yep.
And the one thing that I remember, again, it's been 35 years later, they said, every customer that calls is climbing Mount Anger.
Ooh.
And they actually, and hang on a minute, they actually drew a little mountain. Okay. And said, the customer is climbing up Mount Anger and you need to let them go. And every time you interrupt, so here's my customer climbing up Mount Anger. Okay. Yeah. Every time you interrupt, you're sending them back down to the bottom and they have to start over again. Even if you're just saying, I understand, let me get you to somebody that can help you. No, you have to let them get to the top of Mount Anger. And you'll know when they did because, and you said it, they'll take a deep breath.
Yep. My
Now
husband
they are ready to
exhale.
listen to you so that you can help them.
Yeah.
And if you don't let them get to the top of Mount Anger, then you're just going to keep repeating that cycle because you keep knocking them back down to the bottom. And I've been known to tell support people, hang on, I got to climb Mount Anger. Give me just a minute.
Aww.
Okay, I'm good now. Now let's talk about how we can fix this.
Yep.
One of the best things I've ever learned.
Aww.
I forgot about it until just now.
Pulling out all the things we tend to forget. That's why I like bringing in the humanity of it all, because then it's not just here's the one narrow, very, very point tip narrow thing that Mary does. It's no. There's all of this surrounding it that if you're not exactly on point, you still have something to work with. So you said the 3 words, caring, compassionate, and fun. You also said that your mission statement was live, love, encourage others, and make a difference. Can you kind of tie in the customer service part of that too? Because I know it's always relevant. And can you share how that plays a huge role, because we know it's huge, in the message that you have for people?
You want me to think, and I'm still in my first cup.
Of course.
I mean, granted,
then when you're done, we have our first
big cup of coffee, but it's still just the first, and it's decaf. So hey, no, hang on. I'm using caffeine today, which I don't normally do.
Or we could put it on pause. I'll let you think about it for a while till our next break, and then bring Claire up.
Now I think. Oh, is she here?
Yeah, she's in
awesome. Let's bring Claire up. You remind me what you asked me though.
Oh, I will. So Claire, just give me a visual thumbs up if you're ready to join us. Okay. I'm going to bring you up for a second.
Phone. I would like to be on my computer so I'm bigger and you're bigger. I don't know what happened. I've been waiting for 15 minutes for you to come on the Zoom that I was sent that said it was a changed place and that this was the correct one. And we're already now nearly 20 minutes late or 15 minutes late, 16. So I don't know what's happening. Can we switch to the Zoom room that I was given?
The Zoom room is not working, which is why we switched to StreamYard. And then we sent an email with StreamYard. So we're here. We're good. We're live. So are you ready?
Whatever you want.
Whatever we want.
I don't know what's happening today.
That's okay.
You're interviewing me, or you're interviewing me as to what kind of podcast you're doing with me, or I'm doing with somebody.
Yeah, the whole show is called Amplify Your Message. So really, it's you telling us about who you are, what your message is, different ways that you've decided to use to share your message. And I do know that you do have a podcast, and that you're the rapping Nana. Sorry, the Nana who raps. I want to say it correctly.
The Nana who raps instead of naps.
Instead of naps, yeah. So Claire, I do want to start off the interview just by getting to know you without you telling us who you are yet. And I have an opening question for that, if you're ready. Okay. So Claire, if you could have other people describe you in 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
Oh, I remember you asked that in a big group. I should have been thinking about it.
No, it's fun in the moment. And there's no right answer. So.
Earnest.
Ooh.
Creative.
Mm-hmm.
Friendly.
Aw. I have no idea if I spelled those right, but
I want to change my answers.
You would change your answers. So Claire, how does earnest, creative, and friendly, how do they play a role in the core message that you have for people?
Well, ever since I was maybe a teenager, I always wondered why people were separated into different groups, races, and religions, and why didn't they get to know each other? Why did the religion separate from one another? And claim they were the only one or whatever. I always felt like it was important to be friendly to everybody and to get to know everybody.
Mhm.
And my earnestness happened basically because I guess I became a seeker. I mean, even in high school, my favorite aunt gave me a book called Gift from the Sea by Anne Morrow Lindbergh. And I wrote a paper for my English class, which was a creative writing class for 2 years. And it was called In Search of Peace of Mind,
Ah,
Laura Lindbergh's book, Gift from the Sea. So already at age 17, I was already there, you know, on a search.
yeah.
So my earnestness, I guess, kept going because I traveled, you know, I spent a summer in France before college and got involved in going to Catholic Mass with my new boyfriend. You know, I'm born Jewish, but I think I've written to you that I'm a Jubu, Janu Du, Suzu, Indigenu. So I'm writing a book of appreciation about all my different teachers. And what happened after that was after I got a master's in French and taught French for a while, I met my husband who was planning to go to Nigeria. So he asked me on week 3 of our dating what I'd say he asked me to go to Nigeria with me. So I said, I think I'd say yes. And then the 4th week, he was going to ask me to marry him. So I told my supervisor, I don't think I can keep my contract for year 3. And she said, what would you say if he asked you? I said, I'd say yes. And she said, never put your work ahead of your life. It was a perfect, you know, liberation. So in Nigeria, I did teach French, but then he got involved in public health and was invited to meet people at the Population Council in New York, got hired on the spot, and we were sent to Thailand. That's where my real search began because I got involved in Buddhism. And the friends we all met together in Thai class, I learned to speak Thai. We eventually had meetings every week, you know, telling each other what we discovered on little journeys with a guide. And we ended up writing a beautiful book called 10 Lives of the Buddha, Siamese Temple Paintings and Jataka Tales, which was published as a coffee table book, believe it or not, has all these color plates of all the paintings. So it wasn't only that, you know, that I got involved in, but I did a meditation retreat and you know, that was 6 years and my children were born there. So I love Asia. Came back and needed a place to sit in silence. So I sat with the Quakers. Then I took some yoga classes and the yoga teacher said, there's a Jain master coming to our area. Let's listen to him. I was zonked. I thought he was speaking straight to me. I began to study with him for 6-7 years. I ended up writing his biography, which I brought to show you. It's called Gurudev Sri Chitrabhanu, A Man with a Vision. Another big book. And I also edited some of his talks because, you know, I'm a writer and I was taking notes that we didn't even have tape recorders at the time. I was taking notes on his talks, turned them into books. Anyway, to move on, he went back to India and I found other teachers, Brahma Kumari nuns, they're Hindu, other Hindu teachers, other Tibetan Buddhist teachers, and then not a yoga teacher who teaches listening to the sitar as you meditate. The sitar notes play your body, and after he stops, you're in a beautiful space of inner silence with just a little bit of inner sound in your ears. It's beautiful. And then after that, I met up with someone who said, you really need to go to my teacher, who's Sufi. And he was philosophical. He didn't want to be a guru. He was just extraordinary, pure Inayat Khan. So I studied with them from then on, went to retreats, private retreats. So you see, the earnestness never ended. He passed away eventually, but when I was on retreat, when he was present on the land, we were in little huts behind a meditation hall. We were up in a hill or up the mountain. I had a lucid dream, which I've never forgotten. It was like there was a flame behind me and a flame enveloping people on the left side of me, and I was taking them with my hands to the safety. I was transporting them to safety. And that led me, and it's still leading me, to believing that my real calling is to help people transition when they're in their last days of life. And I have, to fast forward, I did study in a program to play the harp for the dying. And it was a year before my own beloved husband got a bad diagnosis of ALS. And he eventually asked me, when he couldn't sleep at night, to play for him around 3 a.m. I said, now, yep. I brought the harp in the room. And from then on, I played my harp for him at night. And I used to play for my grandchildren, help them go to sleep, and go to a nursing home and read poetry and play my harp from time to time. And I'm still thinking how I can do it, because I need someone to carry the harp. It's heavy. It's not a symphonic harp, but anyway, so nowadays I do have other teachers, which are not main masters like from India. They're American and they're non-dual. They've also gone through many, many teachers and many paths, and they're very good. One's named Jeff Carrera and one is Craig Hamilton. And we have a small meditation group that meets in the morning. So, and I have this big book I haven't finished called My Book of Appreciation, to honor all the teachers in my life, sort of to finally put them to rest. Because one of my teachers said, your seeker identity is very strong, but you're now really a finder. Maybe you should remember that. That was a long answer.
No, it's good, because then what it shows me is that you are very much that lifelong learner. You're always looking for the bigger picture, how things connect. And I do love the fact that you're not just, here's this one teacher with this one concept. You go, well, how can I compare that to all of the things? Because you're just full of curiosity, Claire.
Now, the other thing I didn't mention
is
to put some of these great teachings into simple words. I wrote children's books. And I think I mentioned that. Like this one is called The Sleeping Giantess Wakes Up. And now I illustrated it too. The sleeping giantess is Mother Earth. And she's having nightmares and can't wake up. Why? Because everybody on top of her body is fighting. And they think they're all separate. So a little girl and a little boy decide to walk hand in hand across the planet. And they're breathing in love and breathing out peace. Here they are. And breathing in all these wonderful, compassion and love. And eventually people start to see each other and wake up and realize they're part of one family and they're not separate. And that wakes up the sleeping giantess, and she feels very happy from then on. So that's one story. And here's another one, Sunchild. Now, the Sufi teacher used to tell us to beam when we use our eyes to beam and our heart to beam. So this little Sunchild didn't like it when the clouds used to fight, she thought. And she would throw sundrops at them and they would stop crashing and fighting and they would turn into rainbows. So she played catch with them in that way. And then she fell asleep under a tree, and then some sun beings came to her and said, we know you want people not to stop, people, parents, children, everybody to stop fighting, but we can help you. And she said, how? Well, you have a favorite game, catch. Yeah, but we can teach you to play catch without throwing anything. What? And so they teach her to beam from her body, from everywhere. And that's what eventually, when she asks to the world, will you be my friend? And they answer, yes, 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 we will be your friend. We'll be a friend to every living being in the whole universe. So you see, I've got this. And also this all part of these ideas come from Jainism, because Jainism is the great teaching of reverence for all life. Like everything is conscious. Don't hurt anything. So that also comes in another book, 7 Meditations for Children. A lot of those little simple meditations are for any age, really, but they're very simplified. This is the story of Liliana, a brave Indigenous child, because I'm so caught up with the Indigenous, how they've been treated in this country and everywhere. And this little girl was taken away from her family in my story. By the way, it's also in Spanish now. I've had all my little children's books translated into Spanish, and they're getting printed. And she goes, she decides she's going to walk away from this family where she was placed at age 2, but now she's age 9. And she walks through the woods, and a squirrel offers her some nuts from his stash, and a deer shows her where there's some vegetables, and an eagle offers her a ride on her wings, and she's scared she'll fall off. And then an elf comes along and says, you don't have to be scared. The eagle will take you safely. But first he teaches her a meditation that I learned about from an alchemist healing teacher that I studied with for many years. And he used to take us up to the 70th chakra. And then you would meditate, and you would have 360-degree awareness, which is also what the Sufi teacher used to say, to get 300 to see from God's eye point of view. So she got this meditation that took her way up high. And as a result, she got to see where her family was, and they've been waiting for her, and they've never forgotten about her. And so the eagle comes back, she gets a ride on her wings, and then she says, there, they land, and she finds her family running over to her and hugging her, and they cry and hug, and she's given food, and then they have a ceremony, and then at the end they say, should we tell her? And she says, how could I not know something bad is happening? So they tell her about the fossil fuels, desecrating their lands and their burial grounds, and she teaches them that meditation that the elf says, we don't just have one family, we have everybody as our family, So that's that story. So I could go on, but To the Rescue, Little Creatures, How Do I Love Thee? That's a book about 7 ways I saved little creatures, literally, like worms on the road after the rain, just pick them up, put them into safety so they don't get run over. And the little girl who wanted to be a tree, and a tree tells her, you don't have to be a tree. You have one inside of you, and it's your soul, and it'll take you on journeys. So that was what this alchemist healer taught us about inner journeys. So she has little inner journeys. And the last, not really children's book, is called Day in Search of Her Night /KNIGHT. This is one of my favorites because when I took the harp program to learn to play for people at the end of their lives, there was a story about the temple of Asclepius in Greece in the old days. People would go there to get a healing dream, a healing or just a dream that would answer a question. So I have her going on a search to find out, am I complete in myself as day, or do I need my night or my KNIGHT to complete me? And so she gets a ride on her special steed, and she goes there, and but the interesting part is that before you go into the sanctuary where there are lyre players playing around the marble slab where you're supposed to lie down, you have to feed honey cakes that you make right there to snakes on the outside. There's little serpents. So I turned all of those serpents into my own innermost weaknesses and enemies, like greed or anger or whatever, all the various, I picked 9. And as soon as she looks them in the eye, they vanish. So that means she's, so then she's allowed to go in. And the interesting thing is that every single painting in this book, I had already done the paintings before I wrote the book. I didn't even have the idea of the book. But the paintings, I have a lyre player on framed on my wall in my bedroom. I have all kinds of pictures and paintings. And this one is above my bed, or it was above my bed when I was in that room. This is like her in the dark, and she's light. But anyway, but before I did all those books, I did other books. Like one of the books we read in the HARP program. The HARP program was online, which is why I was able to do it. And I met the teacher in the 1980s at the World Trade Centers. They had death and dying conferences. But she wasn't somebody I could study with because you had to go to Missoula, Montana, where she was at that time. And when I came back from being with somebody I had been with who was dying, almost dying, the phone rang because I was looking for a harpist for that person. And the harp founder called me finally and told me what I needed to know. And in the middle of that call, that mother of the daughter I had been with died. I mean, the daughter died. And then when I told the harp teacher, she said, "Could this be the sign for your next step?" That's when I signed up for the I was there for 3 years in a long distance program. But why I'm saying that is because every time we went in person for 6-day, intensives, we read a book together. And we read the book Gilgamesh. If you've heard of it, it's the most ancient epic in the world. And the king, the arrogant king, is from Uruk. And Uruk has got to be Iraq because it's Mesopotamia. And so I wrote a book. I didn't like the way the story ended, so I wrote a story about the mother of Gilgamesh. Her name is Ninsun, wise mother of Gilgamesh. That is one of my favorite stories. It was in 2012. And this painting is from having followed an art teacher in California who had us paint our legendary self. And my legendary self started off with white skin. She ended up with brown, blue eyes ended up brown, and she ended up looking like a Mesopotamian. So I made her the cover of my book. And the story is quite interesting. You see, the original story ends with he caused the death of his only friend that his mother had predicted he would meet by asking him to go into the forbidden forest and kill the monster. And the friend said, "That's a terrible idea. One of us will get killed." So when the friend gets killed, he goes on a search for the elixir of immortality. And he finds a pre-Noah. It's actually the story of Noah, but pre-Noah story. And that man says, "Yeah, in that water is a plant. If you prick your hand, you'll have immortality." So he's thrilled. He takes the plant, he gets on a boat, goes back to his land. And in the end of that original story, he puts the plant on the beach, goes and swims in the water, comes back, and a snake has eaten it. End of story. So I take it from there that he's, distraught, goes back to his kingdom, and eventually asks his mother, "How did you become so wise? Tell me your story." So my story is every night under the stars, she tells him a new chapter. And go ahead.
It's really safe to say that you've written a lot of books.
A lot. Actually, it started in 2001 when I was trying to stop the war in Iraq before it started, called Roll on Great Earth. These are all poems.
Yeah.
And then there's another one, Tall Grasses of Woods Hole and Other Summary Poems, 2004. And then the same year, 2004, and I've reprinted this like 3 times, The Call of Mother Earth, How a Being of Light Draws Forth Humanity's Response. So, so I've been very concerned about Mother Earth. All right, I'll shut up for a while.
Oh, don't.
Fine, it's fine.
As a writer, I bow down. I'm about to cry. It just, whoa. One, can we find your books in libraries? Because I need to tell some friends. Yeah. And I want to read those kids' books.
Very good question. Well, I live in Hartsdale, and the Greenberg Public Library has some of my early books. I have been working very hard to get my books into Barnes & Noble, But believe it or not, my printer, even though they said they have made those books returnable, there is like this thing called returnable. You have to make the books returnable. Only 2 of my children's books are returnable and the rest are not. So he's finally agreed to take them on consignment. So they're on Barnes and Noble online. They're on Amazon online. Not the early books that I just mentioned, those poetry books, Amazon has them. How, I have no idea.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of scary.
And I have a website that might have access to some of them. I don't know. But I'm trying to get reprints of, like, this one, Nameless One of Splendor, Her Sacred Arts of Creation. This one is about the divine feminine as the creatrice, the creator. And I have all the 7 days of creation are the 7 chakras.
Oh, interesting.
And the last big book I did was Your Inmost Tree of Life, an Invitation. That the Kabbalah, but it's in the form of divine feminine figures as each of the spheres in the body. I don't know if you know about the fact that there's 10 or 11 spheres that are all, like wisdom and intuition and knowing and kindness and stuff like that. And the same teacher that I did the painting of the legendary self, that's where I got the idea to do this, because she had the course on the Kabbalah. Even though she's Christian, her mother loved the Kabbalah, and they had a whole course on painting all the spheres as feminine figures.
Interesting.
Ooh, I just want to share a quote. Lisa said, "Talk about prolific writing." Wow, well done, Claire.
Aha.
Wow.
So there are people listening in?
Of course there are.
I didn't know that.
You're live.
Yep.
Not just with us.
Oh my gosh. Well, the last thing that I really want to get out into the world are my raps. I have a YouTube and I have an Instagram. But the Instagram has about 4 raps, and they're most recent, fairly recent. Like the Supreme Court should be cut short, that one of those. And but my favorite one is hypocrisy. That's the one I know by heart. And anytime I rap it to somebody, they absolutely love it.
Can you do it for us?
I could.
Okay, hold on though. Before you do,
go on Jon Stewart or Stephen Colbert and rap it if I could get my.
That'd be cool.
Before you do, Claire, I would love to just ask you where we can find you to make sure that I get that in.
Where you can find me, on my website.
Yeah, what's your website?
My email, first of all. My first initial C, lowercase, last name Rosenfield.
Okay.
I always say put the I in the field, not the Claire, but this one just has a C, crosenfield9@gmail.com.
Okay.
And I can give you my phone number if you want.
I mean, how do you want people to contact you? Do you want them to call you or text you?
I don't.
This is live to the internet. So
yeah, that's true. Well, and then like my contacthealing.com.
Okay.
Is another one, www.contacthealing.com, and I'm also the president of a nonprofit called Global Healing Foundation, and that's called globalhealingfoundation.org. I haven't been doing a lot with it lately, but I used to, and I probably need to do a little more, but I don't have a lot of help. I have a board and nobody does anything at all. Anyway.
Yeah. So we would love to hear a couple lines if you were willing to share.
Okay. Hypocrisy, autocracy, undoing all democracy, all because you cannot seem to face putting self in another's place. Like pregnant women in dire straits, you claim some power to control their fates, but won't let doctors vaccinate because that for you controls your fate. You claim the unborn is wrong to halt, but baby wolves you'll kill to a fault and go to battle and kill full adults and make of guns full-scale cults. Why don't you look at all this stuff, this hypocritical alt-right bluff? You couldn't care less for women's rights. You only care for bullying and fights. Well, time is up for hypocrites, because women are done with your hissy fits. We make up half the human race. Without a mother, you'd lack a face. You'd lack a body, a life on earth. It's up to her, your human birth, and every birth is her own right. She owns her body, is her own choice. She owns her body and her voice. And you do not. Women's rights aren't sold or bought. If you are Taliban or Texan, your bullying is just as vexing, forgetting that we all are free, just like you who refuse the mask. Protecting all is all we ask. But why do you say no to that? Because it feels imposed and flat. Then can you feel how women feel when you all claim to take the wheel and put controls on someone's life and cause great pain and untold strife? If you believe this land to be the land of the brave and of the free, then go back inside your own beehives and contemplate the wrong you've done by trying to arm twist everyone. And make amends and a new day when all of us, we all can say, I respect you and you respect me. And all of us now vow to agree that we all deserve to be free, just to be free. Free to be you, free to be me. Whoopee.
Aw. See, and perfect timing to end that, Claire.
Are we all up even though we started late?
Yeah. I have to be even more mindful of time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And then things are switching up in the future, but for now we had to stick with the stream.
It was really fun to be with you.
It really was. And where do we find these raps? You said Instagram, and you also mentioned YouTube.
YouTube is just my name, Clare, Clare Rosenfield. And I have some harp playing on there. I have some old talks I gave on my secret to reducing anxiety and preventing panic. That's a 4-minute one. And the other one is trust that love is at the heart of reality, even beyond death.
Nice.
And that's the topic I put in my proposal for my book, our book we're all putting in.
I appreciate you so much for being here and sticking with us and figuring it out. I just celebrate you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Laura.
We'll chat soon.
All right.
Bye, Claire.
Bye.
I see you, Tammy. Just give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join us. Awesome. Hi, Tammy.
Hello. How are you?
Good. I saw you clapping in the background. That was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
It was. I liked the energy of her. Her message was important. It's something that I speak about is, empowering women. And so to hear somebody from a different generation speaking the same language in a different way was really encouraging.
Yeah. There's been so many thoughts.
Yes.
Like my mind's like 50 thoughts. No, let's just take 2. There's been so many thoughts in my head lately about women's rights and seeing everything.
It scares me.
Exactly. So while some people would love to go there, we do like to keep it a little more of like, where do we want the conversation to go?
We don't want it to go there because
we don't want it to go there.
It's too hot. It's too. I have a very, very strong opinion. I'm sure other people have a very strong opinion, and we got to leave it there. There's certain things you don't talk about, politics and etc. being one of them. But there's other ways to spread our message and encourage people to make the right choice for themselves.
So let's start with this comment here, Tammy. There's a friend there, Elizabeth Brown Shaw. She says, "Hi, Tammy. Excited to hear you today."
We live on the separate coast of Canada. So she's originally from the East Coast, like myself, from Nova Scotia. I'm in New Brunswick, but she lives way out in the Vancouver area now. So we are like opposite. Yeah. I'm an hour from Maine to drive. Okay. But if I wanted to drive out to see her, it would probably take me, I think, 4 or 5 days if I just kept trucking. Yeah.
But I could drive to your house in about 2 hours, 3 hours?
Probably.
Probably. Yeah. Okay. So while I would love to talk about that, maybe we'll do that behind the scenes. I want to come back to you for a minute, Tammy.
Sure.
I love to start off every interview with the same question as I get my notebook ready.
So warning, I have a wonderful Canadian cold going on. I normally don't sound so raspy. So I have my cough drop ready. Just warning.
Okay. No, it's all good. So Tammy, here's my question.
Perfect.
If you could have other people describe you in just 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
3 words for other people to describe me. One
That
would
you
be
would love them
strong.
to describe you.
One would be definitely strong.
Okay.
The other one would be helpful.
Uh-huh.
The other one, that's interesting.
Mhm.
That's really hard.
I know.
I guess I care. Those would be the things that mean the most to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what you want people to
Yeah. I want
Okay.
people to feel and to know that I care,
Yeah.
that I'm helpful, and that I'm strong. And I think strong is partly my ego, because I've been through so much that I'm still standing here. So I
Mhm.
think that other women, especially women, see me as strong. But the other 2 are really important to my heart.
Aw. Okay, so then of course the follow-up question is, how do those words, strong, helpful, and caring, how do they play a key role in your core message for people?
So the strong is when I share my story and what I've overcome from my experiences in policing, some of the things I've been through in my personal life. I share those when I speak. I share those when I speak to women, just so that they can see that no matter what happens, when you persevere, you can overcome. And that, not all choices are easy, but sometimes the hardest choice is the best choice. And the caring and that I'm here to help has been kind of like my life mission. I mean, being an officer for 24 years, that was most important to me. One of the biggest things that I did in my career was use that platform or my position to really get involved in domestic violence and supporting other women and encouraging women to do what's right for them. Even though I've been retired 5 years now as of last week, I'm still active in that community. I'm still a part of our Silent Witness project, where we recognize and remember women who have been killed in intimate partner violence in the province of New Brunswick. We help families heal and communities heal by creating life-size silhouettes to honor these women. And I'm one of the founders, and I'm the chair of Safe for Pets 2. So a barrier was recognized by research, also by myself as a police officer. One night I attended a domestic, and I was taking a lady to a shelter, and he yelled at her that if she left, he was going to blank her dog. And not knowing what else to do, I opened the back door of the police car and I took her dog, which was the size of a mini horse. I kept CJ for 2 days at my house until she made connections with a friend, and I met her friend, and I gave the dog to the friend. So all of these things, there were 6 of us that sat, and we created Safe for Pets 2. So we have a sheltering network in the province of New Brunswick, so that when a woman and children usually need to go into shelter, that we have a safe place for their animals to stay while they are at shelter. And we do it in a 30-day periods. And then once the women and usually their children have found a safe place to stay, then the pet is returned to them. And a part of that is we have our veterinarian association on board, so they make sure the animals are all good. If any have been injured, if they're missing needles, etc., they're taken care of. And then they're fostered out within the province. So that's my legacy. That's one of the things I'm the most proud of.
Oh, and I'm picturing my daughter going, oh, that's so cute.
Yeah. Well, having gone through my own things and seeing and having somebody threaten to harm my animal, I know what it feels like. And, that's not fair to anybody. And one of the first ladies we helped had an autistic son, and she said that she could no sooner leave him behind than she could his dog. And once our system was in place, that was what gave her the courage to leave. So she was actually the first person that we were able to help. And we've helped well over 100 so far.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I've known people in different, I'm going to call it levels, for lack of a better term, right now, of intensity of that situation. And it's just so nice to have even the smallest of resources. Because maybe you have one aspect of life that you have a resource for, but then it's so interconnected or highly entwined with something else that you're like, I can't feel comfortable doing this, even though I have support here, if this, and this that's like trailing behind is just going to drop off somewhere.
Yeah. So we help only when the animals are at risk. We're not there to decide who owns the dog or the cat or anything. It's when the animal is at risk. And we've helped everything, like as small as like a little hamster, as to almost 2 years ago, we actually fostered a horse for 2 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's another police officer who has horses, and he stepped up and said, if you need a stable, I have a stable. I have lots of hay. If she can afford to pay the grain, then the horse can stay as long as it needs. So he kept care of her horse for 2 months until she found a safe place where she could have her horse boarded, and then she could carry on from there. So that was huge. That was literally the biggest thing, the biggest animal that we helped. So, you know, it just goes to show that it's not just cats. It's not just a dog. It's whatever. And we've also had a lot of people within the community that rescue specific animals. I remember a lady reached out that rescues snakes. We had a lady that deals with ferrets, and they reached out to us and just said, hey, if anybody ever contacts you about these types of animals, I'm here for you. And we're like, great, because you know, I don't want to bring a snake home with my dog and my cat. I'm not familiar with them. I'm not familiar with how to care for or feed or anything like that. So it's really nice to see how many people have stepped up and stepped forward to help us. And we're completely nonprofit, non-anything. We just are all volunteers. And like I said, our vet association has been absolutely amazing. In 12 years, I think it's 12 now, only one vet has ever sent us a bill. The rest are like, it's a needle. Don't worry about it. And some of the vets have housed our cats in particular just out back because nobody sees them. They're safe. So it's been amazing to see how many people are in a profession for all the right reasons. One of the ways I can put it.
Yeah, I'm going to share some of the love from the chat here just because it always adds. Leah says, Tammy's an exceptional lady. Honored to know her.
Aww,
and it doesn't stop her. We have Dee as well. She's like, what an amazing service. I completely agree. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just so you know, like, people are listening. They are.
Nice.
Yeah. Tammy, I want to ask a little bit more about the backstory. And of course, it's up to you how far and how in-depth you want to go with that. But you said the strong, the helpful, and the caring. We can tell already how much that is playing a role. Why domestic violence? I know you kind of touched on having experience with that, but did you always kind of go into that role of knowing you were going to do that, or was it really more of your personal experience?
Personal experience.
Yeah.
It wasn't my goal when I started. I was in general duty policing. And then I worked in major crime. And then I was back in general duty when I personally experienced it. Mm-hmm. So it was knowing how our system works, I guess, knowing the resources that are there, not there, and just knowing how hard it is to step forward and let people know. And at the time, I didn't press charges because unfortunately, I know our system. And then I really struggled because a lot of people never knew. I was a girl who wore long sleeves shirt at work. It was kind of a joke. I'm the one that's always cold. But I wore them so no one would see stuff. So that was hard. But then later it gave me, when I had our domestic violence portfolio and people were talking about things, I was like, no, that's not right. And they're like, how do you know? I'm like, 1, I'm a woman. 2, I've experienced it. 3, you're a man and you don't have a clue. So, until you've walked in those shoes, don't pretend you know. And I've always said to people, it doesn't matter what degree you have, what initials are after your name. Nothing makes you better suited to help another person in a specific position unless you yourself have walked in their shoes or have experienced something that is similar. I mean, domestic violence, there's so many ranges, and from just not just because some of that I think is the worst, is the verbal abuse. For myself, I still deal with some of the things he told me, like, you're ugly, you're fat, nobody will ever want you, you're stupid. Those things, it's been over 20 years, but those things are still in my head. The bruises, they heal. But the things that people tell you, it doesn't matter how strong you are, how much you've proved them wrong, how much you've moved forward in life, those things, that voice in the back of your head, that will always be there, no matter what. You think you got it silenced, you're doing good, you're strong, and then you have a crappy day and that little voice is coming back and it's telling you, well, of course you didn't do that right, you're stupid. Or, of course that person didn't like you, have you looked in the mirror? That voice is always going to be there. So, I think some people don't realize the levels of violence and how it actually impacts people. The bruising and all of the physical part is very visible and it's very wrong. And I find people react to that and they help with that, but people don't necessarily understand the other sides of it. And then there's the financial abuse, the sexual abuse, all the other things that go completely unnoticed. I can go on and on.
Yeah, I would love to dive deeper on that word strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many women who love to call themselves strong and people that love to think of us as strong and resilient, but there's another side of it. I want to ask you personally.
You're trying to make me cry.
Maybe in a very loving way. On the other side of it, people that think that you're strong, have you experienced, I guess, it's not a lack of support. It's people thinking that you're fine, that you don't need the support, and kind of backing away from helping because they think that you're strong and that you could just handle it yourself.
Oh my gosh, yeah. 24 years as a police officer, seeing the things that we see. And, I remember on more than one occasion being involved in situations and the mentality was suck it up, buttercup. That's what you signed up for this. What the hell's wrong with you? So I learned, unfortunately, very early in my career, good God, do not ever show emotion. Don't cry because you're weak. It's okay for a man to cry. It's okay for a man to be upset because, oh, what a compassionate, what a nice human being. But if you're a woman, you're weak and you might need a tampon. Like that is like, it's, so I unfortunately went through a really bad situation where we had a shooting in Moncton in 2014. We had 5 officers shot, 3 fatally. And I ended up being just around the corner when the shots were fired. I went right into work. I wasn't active on the scene itself, but I went right into the detachment, helped set up command, help get everything in place from water for the ERT team to cars to you name it. And then that location is 2 hours from where I actually live. I was in town for work for another reason, for a conference, and drove home the next morning, got my gun, got my uniform, went back. I ended up staying for 4 months. I ended up being the operational NCO for the team the men were killed on. So that was challenging because after we caught the person, everybody was off for 2 weeks. So everybody that was on my team were from all across Canada. Even our dispatchers were from all across Canada. It was my hometown. I had previously worked there before I transferred to where I am now in Fredericton. So I had the team because I knew where things were. So when dispatch was trying to send the members to a call, they're using Google Maps. Well, I jump on the air and say, okay, hit Main Street. When you see the Royal Bank, turn right. When you see this, turn left. When you hit this, go left, there's the hospital. Like I was giving them the biggest landmarks and helping direct that way. And then my 2 weeks secondment was extended for a month. And then after that month, it was extended for 3. And it just I kept staying there. And one of the worst things that happened was I never really had time to grieve with any of that because I was somebody that was just seen as one of the extra bodies there, not the fact that where the men were killed was one street away from where I used to live, not the fact that I knew the three, not the fact that that was my hometown. And then 12 days after the shootings, a retired RCMP officer that I used to work with committed suicide. And because I was the operational NCO, I had to attend. I had to take care of everything, notify his family, the coroner, et cetera, et cetera. And nobody even asked me if I was okay. I had 5 minutes from dealing with that in my car. I got to cry for 5 minutes. When I got back to the office, I just pretended I was okay because I'm the girl. I'm the woman in charge. There was only 2 women on my shift. The rest were all men. And so what do? You suck it up and you pretend you're okay. And that's one of the things I talk about a lot is mental health, because we don't talk about it enough. And we only notice the things that our society notices as wrong. So people who are going out and getting drunk, oh, that's a problem. The guy or the girl who are eating themselves to death, we see that because they don't fit in their uniform anymore. We notice the people who come in yesterday's clothing, right? But we don't notice people like myself who ran every day. I ran before my shift. I ran after my shift. I ran sometimes both. I'd run till I throw up or almost throw up, turn around and I'd run back. I lost almost 20 pounds in 4 months and I'm not big. And people were like, oh, you're just super fit. You got a 6-pack and everything else. And then after 4 months, and I finally came home, 1 week later, I had another friend who was RCMP officer commit suicide or died by suicide. And unfortunately, because I was finally home, it was safe to cry. And after 3 days, I was like, okay, I haven't stopped. So I went to my doctor, and the first thing he said was, oh my gosh, you need to get on a scale. I was like, no, I got a 6-pack. Like, I'm in my 40s. I'm rocking a 6-pack. Like, this is cool. He was like, get on a scale. I weighed just over 110 pounds. My blood pressure was 70/43. And he was like, how the heck are you walking and talking? And I'm like, I don't know. And then we started talking about sleep. And I'm like, yeah, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I don't really sleep. I stay awake until I literally pass out. I sleep maybe 3-4 hours until I have a nightmare because all I see is dead people. And once I have a nightmare, I'm up because I'm afraid to go back to sleep. And so then I was off work. And that's how my healing started. But it was me that had to start it. And then when I did ask for help, it took me, well, I was put on a waiting list. Even though I was at that point of needing to talk to somebody, I was still just put on a waiting list.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you were just calling out all the little nuggets that most people don't talk about.
No. And we need to create that dialogue. We need it to be safe. One of the things, like when I speak, I emphasize is that I take medication. I still take medication. I'm not ashamed of it. If you were a diabetic and you needed to take insulin, would you be ashamed? And should you be ostracized and looked down upon for lesser because you take insulin every day? No, that's what your body needs to function properly. I take my medication in the morning, just like I take my multivitamin, just like I take my omegas, because it's what's keeping my body healthy and functioning. So I want that to be the norm. I want it, it's okay not to be okay. I'm not crazy. I have, like I explain to people, PTSD is like, think of the best memory. Think of your best Christmas, your best vacation, your best whatever. And every time you see a picture of a palm tree, you think of it. For me, my PTSD is when I see or drive by certain places, I get flashbacks, I get triggered. And those are my nightmares. So your best memories are my nightmares on a daily basis.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember doing similar things. I would go to the gym and I would spend 3 hours at the gym in hopes of falling off a machine, passing out, somebody taking me to the hospital, and finally having somebody look after me. I remember those nightmares that would come every night, every time you fell asleep. As soon as you got into the dream state, you have the nightmare dreams, and then you wake up out of it. You didn't even get to the point of deep sleep yet. There's no restoration. And
No.
so then you're training your body that sleep has now become dangerous.
It's the enemy.
And so, yeah, insomnia has a huge role, and it doesn't just sit there for the year or until you heal your triggers. It's
No.
something you have to take with you for the next 10, 20, 30, 50 years that you have to redo in order to get the healthier habits back.
Yes.
That's what I've been working on. Is like, I need to get deep sleep because I finally got a watch and it kept saying 0 deep sleep, 0 deep sleep, 0 deep sleep, 4 minutes deep sleep. I'm like, it's been 14 years since my accident.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time I was diagnosed with PTSD. Not the last, but the first time.
Yeah.
And it still keeps going. So it's like, just the tools that's required to get through every day, let alone trying to feel better. Like, whatever you need for you, Tammy, I encourage you. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where, like, for me, I talk a lot too, like, not just on a stage, but one-on-one with people. I talk about the importance of what are you putting in your body? What are you putting on your body? Like, for me, my home is completely toxic chemical free. I'm very careful about the products I use on my skin. I'm very careful about the products I put in my body. And not just because it's better for the environment, which is also super important to me. Like the last lady, environment is everything. So my animals. But I feel, I think of it this way, that my body is working so hard to be healthy. I'm working so hard to be healthy on a mental level that my safe space is my home. I should not have to still be fighting in my own home. So if one thing I can control is removing the chemicals that are hurting my body, that are hurting my, when I breathe, that are hurting my lungs, that hurt, they disrupt, they're neurodisruptors. There's so much research out there, people. But people are still buying things that literally hurt them, like bleach, for gosh sake. It's like, you might as well just drink that crap if you're going to use it. So for me, it's so important to look at those types of things and just create the healthiest environment for yourself. And I know money sometimes is an issue because some of the worst things we can buy are actually the cheapest, but then we need to look at the options. And you can make things. There are other ways of getting products that are cheaper, or don't buy the junk food. Like I live 20 minutes away from town. So my biggest trick is I don't buy anything. And then I have the munchies at 10 o'clock at night and I go out to the kitchen. I can have an apple or I can have almonds. Gee, I'm not hungry anymore. It's easy. Or this is really bad, but I've gotten much better. I used to put chips and chocolate. When I first go in a grocery store, I used to put it at the front of my cart so it'd be there, and then I wouldn't have that urge or that need to want to shop for it. I'd walk around the whole store, do all my shopping, and when I get to the checkout, I was one of those bad people who would put things up and put it right beside the cash and not buy it. But that was how, when I was eating my emotions after the shootings and once I started eating again, that was how I dealt with not buying the bad stuff. Was I would have it within my view the entire time I shopped. So then it wasn't a little voice in my head saying, you need sugar, you need chocolate, you need. It was in my cart. But when I got to the cash, I'd look at it and go, okay, that's the bad shit. And I'd take it out. And then I would just pay for the good stuff. So it's just, there's all kinds of little tools and tricks that, I've used and that I can share to help people or, have conversations about. And some of them are just downright silly, like walking around with a chocolate bar for an hour until you're done your shopping and then you leave it on a shelf. But yeah, it worked.
It's not silly. It's brilliant. I gotta write that one down. I'm gonna do that. Yes. Tammy, I need to say to you, I am so sorry that you've had to go through all of this.
Oh, thanks.
But I am so utterly and completely blown away by how you have risen above it.
Thank you.
How you are using what could have buried you to help others rise above it as well.
Yeah.
Well, you're amazing.
Thank you. I saw in my career, and I think this is a part of it, was I noticed, and I hate the word victim now, I won't use it. But some people wear that proudly as a label. like this happened to me as a child, so now I can be a nasty, crotchety old biatch. No. It makes you entitled to everything. It makes you entitled to be cruel to other people. No, those are still choices. Bad things happen to us, and then we have to make a choice. We can either continue to wear that label, or we can learn from it. And I know there's horrible things that happen to people, and I'm not minimizing anything that has ever happened to another human being, but it doesn't give us the right to hurt others. And that's one of the things that I've noticed is hurt people hurt people. And that's why we need to talk. And that's why we need to help other people and be a little more understanding. And, you know, when I was on the job and were being really rude and calling me pretty much everything but a white woman, I made sure to be extra kind and extra nice. A part of it was like, I hope it just pisses them off. But a part of it too was, I'm not lowering myself to be like you. I will never be that condescending or that ignorant to another human. And it was surprising because some of the things that came back from being who I was and treating everyone equal, one night saved my butt, literally, from an altercation because somebody stepped forward who was a big drug dealer who I had interactions with, but I always treated kindly. And he stepped forward and says, nobody touches her, which is like, cool, thank you. And it was such a simple act that I pulled a car over that had a tail light out during the daytime. I approached the car, I got his information, ran it, everything was good. I gave him a warning. I said, I'm working until, I forget, 6 or 7 o'clock at night. Go get a tail light, $5. Come back to the station, show that you've gotten it fixed, and it'll be over with. And he looks at me and he goes, do you know who I am? I said, I know who you are. And he goes, and you're not towing my car? I said, not for a taillight. He goes, and you're not giving me a fine? I said, no, I'm not. And he's like, everybody else would. And I said, well, that's not who I am. I said, I stopped you with the intention of just letting you know your light was burnt out to get a new one. And he looked at me and he's like, oh, okay, I'll remember that. And then he trained at the same gym as I trained at. So it'd be like, hi. We both know who each other is. It's like, cat and mouse all the time. But there is just that knowledge that I know who you are. I know what you do, but you're a human, vice versa. And then we got into a situation where I was in a bar to make an arrest, just myself and another officer. And there's a large group of these men. And it was starting to go sideways. And he spoke up and just said, nobody touches her. And nobody did. And the person left with us. And that was, by the grace of God, everything just went perfectly. And it might not have had I just not treated that person because I had the power. I could have been a complete, but I chose not to because that's not who I am. That's not why I became a police officer. I didn't become a police officer so that I could exert my power over everybody. I actually went into policing to help people and to support people and, still charge people and do the right thing when you need to do the right thing. But a taillight is a $5 correction. Like, to me, that would just be, that's not, I don't know. There's better things that I should be fining people for. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. It's judgment. It's common sense. I mean, it's a taillight. You don't notice your taillight is out when you're driving because it's behind you and you're not going to know unless somebody tells you. Now, if you're a complete idiot and you start swearing and spitting at me, well, then you just wrote your own fine. But when somebody is kind to me, I return the kindness. Like, it's just, that's, how I was brought up. That's how I was taught. People are people. I don't care what color, what gender, whatever you are, whoever you love, whatever. Everyone is a person, and that's how I treat people. Like, it's just simple.
How treating humans as if they were humans. It's such a mind-blowing concept for so many people because we are brought up to put everybody in boxes and to put labels on people. And if you can see outside the boxes and just see, oh, you're a human being. You need help. Okay. You need, I'm famous for offering a shoulder. I have terry cloth shoulders. They look like skin, but really they're terry cloth. And, if you need to cry on my shoulder, go for it. I'm here. But just treating people like people and not trying to take any time away from you, Tammy, because I want you to keep
Oh gosh, no.
I'm thinking of my retail job that I do part-time and how everybody's like, oh my God, the customers are, and I'm like, I've been there. It'll be 2 years in March. And I think I've had 3 grumpy customers because people are people and that's how I treat them. And I don't care if you're a janitor or a CEO.
Yeah.
I'm going to treat you like a human being.
Yep.
If you're a CEO, I'm going to make a joke about, oh, I should be bowing and scraping because you're somebody important. And then they laugh and then we go back to treating each other like human beings. It's just incredible what a difference that can make. And I wish the rest of the world knew it.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny. Like, I remember this old drunk we used to pick up all the time. And when I first started policing, I was, little. And one of 5 women in a detachment of over 120. And the boys had brought in this old fella that we dealt with on a regular basis. And he was cursing like worse than a sailor. And I was in the cell block area. And he turned around and he saw me, and it was hilarious. He goes, "I'm sorry, little girl." And then he stopped swearing. And the boys had the biggest laugh over that. So then whenever we had to go pick him up wherever he was, if I was on duty, I always got sent because with the boys, he wanted to fight and he wanted to curse and spit. With me, I'd roll up and I'd say, "Hey, Ralph, come on. We got to go have a nap." "Okay, little girl." I'd open the back door. He climbs in. He's saying Johnny Cash songs to me, honest to gosh, the whole way to the detachment. And then this one night I have him in cells, and one of the male officers, because male officers pat down and search male, female. So one of the other officers patted him down quickly because, again, he's a regular. He's pretty harmless. He just goes in the drunk tank, sleeps, we feed him, and release him. Anyways, he got patted down. The male officer is leaving. Now I'm all alone with him in the cell block. He reaches inside of his coat pocket and pulls out a steak knife. And he says to me, he said, "Little girl, you should have this," and hands it to me. Isn't that like, and the male officer turned around and he was like, "Oh my God, I am so sorry. I am so sorry." Like, there's a lesson. Just because you know them doesn't mean they don't have anything. But he carried that only for protection. But he had enough of a bond or whatever with me that he knew that he shouldn't have it. And instead of trying to hurt me with it, he handed it to me. Like, "Here, little girl, you should have this."
Aw. Tammy, I want to be mindful of time. We only have about 3.5 minutes left.
Oh my gosh, that went fast.
I know. I want to make sure that we know where to find you and your favorite way to communicate.
So on Instagram, it's Your Truth Lies Within. So TLW is my initials, and I came up with a business name, Truth Lies Within, because that speaks to me in so many ways. But on LinkedIn, it's Tammy Ward, and then I have my speaking page, Tammy Ward Speaks. I have a web page, Tammy Ward Speaks, make life easy. My Gmail is tammywardspeaks@gmail. It's just, I made it easy. So, it helps people, but it also helps me remember what I have.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And then I also like to hold space at the end of an interview, just in case there's something on your head or in your heart that you just need people to take away from this conversation.
My main thing is, like, I'm really, right now I'm struggling a little bit with everything going on between Canada and the US. I have friends on both sides. And, I sent a message to one of my friends just yesterday that lives in the Boston area. And I'm like, "Hey, girl, I see you. I still love you. And I know that 99% of the US people are wonderful. So just know your Canadian neighbor up here still loves you." I just, kind of breaks my heart. It's kind of like during COVID when there was all the movement with the Black Lives Matter. and how the police that shouldn't have been wearing uniforms and Mr. Floyd and all that went down. That just broke my heart, because prior to that, I never saw people or described people as my Black friend or my Hispanic friend or my people are people. And, you know, like I describe people by, she's a school teacher. She's got the biggest belly laugh you'll ever hear. Her husband's a pastor, or she has 5 kids and I don't know how the heck she does it. Like, that's how I describe people. So I'm struggling with this divide that, you know, that is so rampant on Facebook. So if you're going to post kindness, kind of like my mama taught me. If you got nothing nice to say, don't say anything. So that's my big message. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything, and just be kind, because at the end of it, I pray to God everything's going to work itself out. You know, we're like brothers and sisters. I mean, I go to Maine comes here. We're like one is the other as far as I'm concerned, as far as the people and like the geography, and I don't know. So yeah, that would be my big message this time of year. And then my other one is just get in touch. I'd love to speak at any event that people are hosting about mental health or motivation or anything like that. That is what brings me great joy.
You and I need to talk about some local mental health events.
Definitely.
So, and I may have to come visit, since my in-laws, or not my in-laws, my sister-in-law, other brother-in-laws, like they're all in Fredericton.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, I'm going to have to go visit.
Definitely.
Yeah, we'll connect after. I do want to say thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I'll call this the official close of the interview, but we do have a few minutes afterwards, because we have to be mindful of how we leverage this interview afterwards. So the interview itself is like over. This is our recap phase. That's what I'm calling it.
Cool.
We have a few minutes just to, I like to use it to share something that stood out for us. So we'll go around. I'm going to ask you first, Tammy. What was something that stood out to you during our conversation today?
We got deeper into my personal background of why domestic violence is important to me that I wasn't expecting.
You're welcome.
Yeah, but I didn't cry.
I know, it's a win, isn't it?
It is. It just means I'm getting stronger. The more I talk about it, the more I think it heals.
It does. What about you, Mary? What's something that stood out to you?
As I hit the microphone on my picture, thinking that's going to unmute me. Besides the 12 fire trucks that were outside my house, what else stood out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I still don't know what that was about. How you have, I don't like the word come back. That's not the right word. But again, how you have risen above what could have dragged you down and buried you in the mud. And I'm right there with you on victim. I'm not a victim of anything. I am a survivor of whatever it might be. And one of my friends years ago said, we have a choice. And this is what I heard from you. And it just triggered my friend's words in my mind. We have a choice as to how we identify ourselves. And do you choose to be a domestic violence victim, or would you rather be a person who has experienced domestic violence? They are two different things. One is a label that identifies how you think about yourself. Well, they both are labels anyway. And you chose the latter. And, you know, you are definitely a survivor, and not just a survivor, but a thriver. And I think so many people are going to get hope from everything that you're sharing.
Oh, thank you.
Whether you're sharing it here or in speaking or just in private interactions with people, you are just living, breathing hope. And it's awesome.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, something that stood out to me is going to be a little silly. You putting the chips and the chocolate bar in your cart while you're shopping? The best advice ever. Because I'm lactose intolerant, but I still crave the chocolate. And I do understand that there's a lot of emotions attached to food still for me. But I tend to crave like the milk chocolatey chocolate bars when
I can teach you how to make it completely lactose free. I make my own chocolates.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Okay.
But you're in the store and you're just like, it's so easy. Just pick it up. I don't have to do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that part. But I also love how you've taken your love of the human going through a difficult time and connected it to the things that they love as well, like the animals, like their kids, like different aspects of their life. Whatever that is, you understand that the person is more than just this one facet, that you encompass it all. So that's what stands out to me. Again, thank you so much, Tammy. Such a delight.
Thank you, ladies. I've had fun. My gosh, I can't believe this went by so fast.
I know. Is there, we have about 60 seconds or so. Is there anything else you'd like to say before Tammy leaves us?
Mm.
No?
Just that it's okay if you have an off day. It doesn't have to define you. I mean, I like to think I'm strong, but I still have crappy days. I still have days where getting out of bed is a challenge. Like nobody is perfect and nobody should expect anybody else to be perfect. So, I call giving myself grace because sometimes I'm going to eat that crappy food. And instead of feeling guilty the whole time, I'm going to enjoy every single morsel and lick my fingers and not feel guilty. And then the next day I'll make sure I eat a salad for lunch and balance it all out. But that's living. Like you can't give up everything forever. Like it's all about giving yourself grace. And sometimes June is a hard month for me because that's when the incident in Moncton happened, June 4th. So leading up to it and surrounding that day, it's really bad for me. So I try to make myself busy. I try to have plans with friends so that I don't sit home and just pull covers over my head. So that would be my tip for people. If you're going through and you have certain triggers, try to have other people that bring you joy. Like I've got friends I can reach out to and just sit there and laugh. Or you know what? If you have the finances, schedule yourself a pedicure. Or if you don't have the finances, then find something free that's going on locally that will make you smile. Or if you have children, make an activity that brings them and yourself pleasure, whether it's painting or something, but try to attach a different meaning to those days that have specific triggers.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tammy. We will chat soon.
Thank you, ladies. Have a beautiful day.
Bye.
Bye.
We do have our next guest in the back. Just give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join us. Hi, Dr. Maria.
Hey, Laura. How are you doing?
Good. I remember chatting with you before. I remember having such a fun time. I can't wait for today.
I am so excited and ready to talk.
Okay, but I think you know my secret weapon at the beginning then.
Totally. Go for it.
you know where this is going.
I know you, Laura.
Okay, I'm going to ask again because they're always different. If you could have other people describe you in just 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
Passionate.
Mm-hmm.
Relentless.
Wait, what did you say?
Relentless. Relentless. Okay. Yeah. And kind.
And
What was
sorry?
that last one?
Kind.
Ah. Yeah. See, now I'm going to have to go back through my spreadsheet and see what you said last time.
Yeah, and see how it compares. Because last time I think it was about 8 months ago or so, hey?
Something like that, yeah. And that's one of the things I'm really interested in is the same people will have some of the same words that they'll use over and over, but then usually it's just one and then they'll switch the other 2 based on how they feel that day or how they've grown. I just want to keep going with this question for the next 20 years to see how people evolve.
100%. And I almost guarantee all of my answers were different than I think the last time.
I do have a question. How do kind and relentless go together?
Yeah. Well, you can be relentless in your pursuit of what you find meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
It's that individual relentlessness of I'm going to get to my goal and nothing's going to stop me, but I can still be kind to myself and the world around me in that process.
Thank you.
That's exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I think I've been using the word ambitious instead of relentless. But I think I need to lean into that relentless kind of energy, because it's like, "Ugh."
It's very powerful, and usually it has like a negative connotation to that
Yeah.
relentlessness. Because I think when you say relentless, you think, oh, like somebody's out to get me or somebody's out to hurt somebody. But really, you can be relentless if you're passionate enough about your goal in life. You can be relentless in pursuing that. Right? But that does not mean you are just kind to other people. It does not mean that you rule your life or you run your world with an iron fist. Right? There can be that quiet relentlessness, that nothing that gets in your way, you're going to let it get to you and let you bring you down. Right? So I mean, like, for example, if we see a child out there riding her bike and she falls off 5, 10, 15, 30 times, we can be like, she is relentless in getting to the end of the street. That is a good thing. That is a good thing. So I'm leaning into that, a little bit of that power today with that relentless word.
Good. Okay, so taking the words, I just want to use them again. So passionate, relentless, and kind.
Yeah.
How do they play that key role in the core message that you have for people and that you're trying to share?
Yeah, I think that for me, passion drives my purpose in life. Passion really drives my purpose, and it really drives a lot of the work that I do with burnout syndrome.
Ah, yes.
I have had to be relentless in this pursuit due to how many setbacks are in my way, both professionally and personally, to get to the spot where I'm finally at right now in my career. And walking through that path of getting to where I am right now, kindness, you have to be kind throughout the whole time to yourself, through self-compassion, and to other people as well. Because you don't want to live your life and go through all of your obstacles with anger, with resentment, with negative emotion. That is so easy to overtake you when you see so much adversity and setbacks. So kind of how they've been together for me today.
I love that you mentioned burnout and overwhelm. I think the last time we talked, it was right after me not walking for a month. Yeah. I was like, I'm pretty sure I told you about that. Since then, Dr. Maria, I have spent so much time working on that overwhelm, the inner chaos, the burnout. My nervous system has healed so much, and I'm already seeing such changes in me that I finally feel more like myself. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to rephrase it to a question for you. So I know that you have personal experience with burnout and overwhelm. Of course, there's a story there. So
of course, there's a story. I started for a reason.
But I want to know what your experience has felt like as you were making that shift. If you can get some of those lovely details for us.
Yeah. So just kind of the shift into burnout and studying it and whatnot. Or
sure. Whatever you want to share.
Yeah. I think with burnout for myself, it really did take me by surprise. Really, when I started my master's program, I came out of a very severe depression of about 8 to 10 years, and I had generalized anxiety disorder throughout the whole time as well too. So I was battling so much mentally. When I entered my master's program, it's like I found meaning. I found something that I could focus all of my energy and attention on. And the more that I learned about, my field and my profession, the more and more I fell in love with it. Aww. And it became that passion for me. But in studying and really looking at burnout, I thought that it was something I opened my eyes and I looked around me. I'm like, what are people struggling with mentally? Like, I've got my depression, I've got my anxiety, but what else is going on? And then I noticed people's relationships with their work, and that's when it started everything. And then I got lost in the process too. Yeah.
So what did it start? I guess I want to go back just for a moment. How did you have the awareness that you were burnt out? Did it like take too long and you were in the depths?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, with most people with burnout, you don't, when burnout starts, it's not like, oh, I'm burned out, I'm going to go fix it. It is, burnout's a slow burn. It happens over at least months. If not, it bubbles for years. Really what it is it's chronic stress that has not been successfully managed, and that tap hasn't been turned off with the stress. So it's like the stress keeps building, you don't get enough of a break, and it just builds slowly over the months and the years. And then you get to a point, and for me, I think that was about the third year of my master's. I'd say that it was bubbling from the first year that I started. I was working 16-hour days at a hospital, doing quite intensive work with in psychiatry, and I was also doing my thesis at the same time. So I had barely any time to sleep, and for me, it showed up with negative emotion persistently. Like I just didn't feel like myself. I did not have my energy emotionally. I wasn't bubbly. I didn't feel as kind as I should be, and I felt kind of bad about that. And yeah, it really showed up with me being cynical, kind of quite a negative mindset. And yeah, that was tough.
So are you saying that when I start to get our sarcastic, that's probably one of my burnout days?
It can be. Actually, I'm actually so happy that you brought that up, because something that I've noticed is that when sarcasm goes into dark humor, and dark humor is inappropriate of the workplace norm, when it gets a bit too dark, that is a huge clinical indicator for me that it's like, were we trying to normalize something that we shouldn't be normalizing? So sarcasm can be good, and it can be a great way of coping with those tough days. But just to make sure it doesn't go into that dark humor that is a bit too dark that you would usually say. Okay, so that's kind of a little quip I have for you, a little clinical pearl.
I never even thought about it. We just were talking about sarcasm yesterday, and I do love sarcasm.
Oh yeah, sarcasm's great.
Oh yeah, because I know it takes intelligence. I know it takes understanding on so many levels to find patterns and simplify it. But at the same time, I do tend to do it on my more irritable days.
Right. For sure. I think that like sarcasm generally is a healthy way of stress coping on your irritable days, right? Yeah. Because you're able to turn something, a negative emotion, into more of a positive emotion where you can start to laugh, right? That's super good and that's super adaptive, right? Yeah. Just if those sarcasm days are becoming way too much, I mean, that can be a really early sign, even just for you to be like, what feeling that I'm trying to laugh off that we should be looking at.
So then I want to ask about passive aggressive communication.
Sure.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Because my daughter actually mentioned to me the other day, she was just getting so stressed. And the way that you're describing burnout, I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure she was getting to that point that something needed to change. Yeah. And she did. She set some things up and she set some boundaries. And I'm so proud of her for that, because I'm not so great at boundaries. That she's like, but I felt myself slipping into the passive aggressive language. And she's like, I wanted to yell. I wanted to be sarcastic, but she's like, instead, I went with the passive aggressive in hopes that they got my point but without me being really rude. Right. So do you find that that's also a major symptom in somebody who's getting to that point?
Totally. It absolutely is, for sure, right? Because passive aggressive communication is an indirect way of trying to get one of your core needs across without having the emotional fortitude to do so and to articulate that, right? So, for example, doing something that shows you're not happy with somebody else's behavior or attitude, instead of, taking that extra deep breath and addressing the situation, being like, hey, I'm not okay that you did this. I'm going to need you to stop. Right? That takes extra energy for a lot of people, especially those who tend to be more like people pleasing. And I know I'm myself like that. If I had to work through that myself, that takes that extra level of emotional energy, right? So I think that the passive aggressive behavior might be, and this has not been studied in the literature, but from my perspective, it could be a bit of an indicator that, oh, are we having a hard time emotionally? What's going on there emotionally that you don't have the resources to take a breath, address the situation, and move forward that way?
I can share that at the beginning of today, I got a message from her, and because she's been dealing with medical issues, I always check just in case she needs something. So I checked, and she was telling me how yesterday was her first day of this big decision that she made to feel better.
Yeah.
And then today she made another decision that instead of going back to that situation where she went passive aggressive and found herself kind of building more and more of that energy that she just didn't want, she made a decision. She's like, I just took myself out of that situation entirely, because me being that version of me, even if it's something that I love to do, she's like, it's not worth it.
No.
I was like,
No.
yes.
What a proud mom moment. Good for her.
But I know that it's not just me that she's learning from. Like, I learn from you guys just as much as she learns from all the TikTok videos and everything else she watches.
Yeah.
But sometimes it feels like they're not listening.
Yeah.
And then these situations happen, and we know that they are.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to take that idea of sometimes we're just not listening.
Yeah.
When you talk to clients, or when you give speeches or even write books, I'm not sure exactly what things you're up to right now.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you find people have heard this information before, but maybe they're just not getting it yet, or maybe they're just not ready for it yet?
Yeah. I think by the time that my clients come to me, they are ready for change.
Oh, good.
They are ready usually at that point, right? Just because they do know that burnout is the only thing I work with. I just do burnout, right? So by the time that they see me, they're like, Maria, I'm in it. I'm like, okay, take a breath. Let's look at the situation. We will analyze what's going on. And so it's a lot of initially kind of putting out fires and getting our feet underneath that before we can really kind of chart that path forward into burnout recovery. But yeah, I think that, and a lot of times too, when I'm at summits or networking events, a lot of people there aren't maybe they don't have any experience personally with burnout, but they've seen it in the workplace, they've seen it with colleagues, or maybe they are in it themselves. So I have these beautiful conversations, even when I was at a summit here this past Saturday, of like, it's burnout, that's what I do, and then people started sharing their stories. And one thing that I've seen time and time again here too, that people don't realize it's burnout, but they do know that their body is breaking down unexpectedly. Their joints are hurting for no reason. They don't have rheumatoid arthritis. Yeah. I talked to one lady, and she mentioned that she had a stroke before she realized her work was causing her that much stress that she had to spend over like a few weeks in hospital from it. Right. So a lot of physical symptoms can pop up without people realizing what is going on with my life and what is going on with work.
Now, Dr. Maria, I don't remember talking to you about my stroke, so I don't know how you knew that. No, seriously.
No.
The year I turned 55, the day after I turned 55, I had the flu. 6 weeks later, I had the flu again. 2 weeks after that, I had a TIA, mini stroke, right? That's what those are called.
Stroke, yeah.
Then I had shingles. Then I had a cerebellar stroke, all within the space of December 14th to April 6th, because I was not listening to my body tell me to slow the heck down.
Yeah.
I didn't feel burned out.
Yeah.
Sarcasm is my second language, so I was being overly sarcastic. But it taught me to listen to my body, to slow down, to find and push for that work-life balance.
Yeah.
But I had to laugh when you said you had a person you were talking to, that I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't talk to you.
We didn't meet before, Mary. This is the first time we've ever connected. So
yeah, exactly.
Not you.
But it's so important for us to learn how to listen to our bodies. And so many of us don't.
100%.
Especially in America. It doesn't fit with the hustle culture.
And Mary, like that is such a good point. The hustle culture is, I think, one of the main reasons that social reasons that drives burnout. Because the hustle culture says you can do it all if you only push hard and fast and long enough. And that is complete toxic messaging. 100%. I will take that tooth and nail to the gravestone. You can do that for so long, but there will be a time when your mind or your body will tell you to stop, and there will be a cost.
Ooh, that ties right in with the conversation around emotions. Like our body's always communicating with us, whether it's physical sensations or whether it's mental emotions. All of it is communication. And if we're not listening, it's like that little kid going, "Ma, ma, ma." They're going to get louder, "Ma, ma," and more annoying until you can't ignore them anymore.
100%.
Whether you have a stroke or whether you can't walk or whether this huge thing happens, maybe you literally hit a telephone pole. Something will happen where you cannot deny that there was communication happening.
100%, Laura. I'm actually curious, has that been something recently or in the past few years that you really noticed? Like, what messages has your body given you? I'm wondering, in terms of like, hey, like what are your tells? What are your body tells?
One of them is actually twitching.
Yeah.
So there's a few genetic disorders that run in my family. One of them is called EDS or Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I do not have an official diagnosis, as it is extremely difficult to get diagnosed here in Nova Scotia. Good luck. But the family who has access to that, all of them have been diagnosed.
Okay.
Most or half of my family has been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which is a neurological disease. And so things like the twitching is something that's neurological. So if I'm stressed, my eye will twitch. I will get random sharp pains somewhere on my body with differing degrees of intensity, of longevity, of types of pain. Like, it was to the point I would get really sharp pains about 30 times a day. Some of them caused me to stop breathing. Some of them caused me to stop moving. Like, that's intense days. On a day where it's just starting, then I'll get the one twinge and it'll make me go for a moment and stop breathing, but only for that moment. And I'm like, oh, because now I have that awareness.
Yeah.
And that's one of like 20 different tells.
100%. Wow. Sounds like you know your body and what the message is now that it's saying to you really, really, really well. Hey?
Well, now, but not 20 years ago when I probably should have started paying attention.
Better late than never, okay? Better late than never.
Exactly.
Yeah, actually, that's so interesting that you mentioned eye twitches, because I've heard so many of my clients say eye twitches, like I'm getting these like weird twitches. I'm just like, yeah, this is the pattern I've seen. Yeah, that is not an uncommon complaint whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another big one is since I couldn't walk, April of last year, that's when I started having heart palpitations almost constantly. Oh yeah. And then, I know. So then it got to the point where it wasn't constantly, it was only when I would be resting or be sleeping. And there were some days where I would be so burnt out, I would crash. Like, it didn't matter if I was sitting at my desk or not. I would just have to go to sleep. And then I'd be in this weird stage of sleep where I'm awake enough to hear what's going on, but I can't talk. I can't move. It's like you wake up in a dream within a dream within a dream, and you're just kind of like trying to do stuff, all with the heart palpitations. And it's like I go back unconscious, back into the nap, and then I wake up doing the same thing, go back into the nap, wake up. Now I'm to the point where the heart palpitations only happen on a bad day.
Okay.
I've been dealing with the palpitations for over a year, every single day when I wake up. And the last couple months, only on the stressful days. So, like, again, huge wins, but one of those major tells.
For sure. That's so interesting. I think, like, for me, one of my major tells that I'm working too hard, and that, like, maybe I have a really, really heavy week with clients, or maybe I'm, working in my consulting practice and I'm juggling too much, is physically, like, I notice that my anxiety goes up to like an 8 out of 10. And I don't show any of it, but I feel it. As soon as that comes up, I'm like, okay, I'm going to put a stopper to this, because if I feel that inside, I know my body is going to follow. So what I do is, if I need to, I will cancel my afternoon. I will get exercise. And actually, exercise is one of the best and evidence-based ways that you can help manage the exhaustion that comes with chronic stress and burnout. So when you exercise, you get all of that energy out, you get perspective. And my suggestion is exercising outside, not in a gym, because you also have the mental stimulation that comes with looking at, wow, there's so much more in my world than just the four walls of my office.
Okay,
I worked from
No.
home for 17 years with my last corporate job. And we would have meetings, and y'all know how corporate meetings are. Okay. And there was a manager that we all tolerated, but we had to, because she was the director. And she'd start the meeting with, I'm not going to say much today. I'm going to leave it to you guys. And 20 minutes later, she was still talking.
Oh.
Yeah. And every time those meetings were over, I was out in my front yard doing something, planting a tree, cutting dead limbs off of a tree, something to get that adrenaline out. And it was just so restorative.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, that is so what you needed then, wasn't it? Being outside and moving your body after sitting down and being exposed to this speech that went on and on and on and on. Yeah. Are you still like engaging with outside and being outside and outdoors and gardening?
Oh,
It's the winter,
outside is my place. And not like the people that outside and they go hiking and things like that. No. The drawback to the cerebellar stroke is I have very minor balance issues, because I've only got 60% of my cerebellum, right? 40% on one side is occluded. Oops. But yeah, my yard is at least a quarter acre, probably a little more than. And I have turned it from a very boring, oh, look, it's all grass, to what somebody on Facebook calls a rewilded yard. I have planted stuff to make it friendly for wildlife, because I live in the used to be country. We're now a suburb of Atlanta, but once upon a time, where I am was a horse pasture.
Oh.
And they turned it into a subdivision. And so I have planted trees and shrubs, and I do a mix of native and non-native, because I'm sorry, daylilies are beautiful and I love them. So they are all over, and they're not native, but they're beautiful. But I have deer that walk through my yard.
Wow.
And the guy that used to cut my grass for me before I got the lawn down to where I can do it myself says he has never seen anybody else's yard with as much rabbit droppings as I have. And I took it as a huge compliment, because that's exactly what I was going for. The wildlife love my yard. It took me 3 years here before I saw a honeybee in my yard. And now I see them all the time. The Georgia state bird is the brown thrasher, which is this beautiful brown songbird. There's a family of them that lives in or around my yard. I see them in my yard all the time. So that kind of thing. And I'll sit out on my back porch and just listen to the birds.
Beautiful.
It's wonderful.
Beautiful. Wow.
I wanted to share one more tell, and this one isn't just for me, it's for like everybody. I kind of want to call out the people watching.
Everybody listen up.
Everybody listen up. Okay, so one of the things that I find myself doing is, again, on those days where I'm not quite feeling so good, I find myself giving to other people what I'm looking to get from them. So those will be the days where I will send the random love notes to people. Be like, this is a love note, just because. Yeah. Or I'll send them a video. Thinking of you, just wanted to say hi. If I'm looking for love, I give love. If I'm
You
looking
give
for
love.
support, I give support. If I'm
Yeah.
looking for advice, I give advice.
Yeah.
Right. So then asking yourself on those days, what am I giving today?
Yeah.
I'm seeing this pattern over the last day, 2 days, week. This is what I'm
Totally.
actually looking for.
Yeah.
How can I take the courage and
Yep.
ask for what it is that I'm looking for instead of giving it and hoping somebody
it
will give it back?
Yeah, it's like you give out 100% of the love you're looking for, and you're hoping for a little bit more than a crumb, right? But when we do that, well, we're opening ourselves up to being disappointed, right?
Over and
So,
over.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to that pattern of doing, and this is something, it's kind of part of the burnout personality too, with the perfectionism, the people pleasing, the high standards, and putting everybody else before your own. Somewhere along the line, we didn't learn, we forgot that we need to put our needs first before we can give to others, right? So I think that that's kind of really in the world of self-compassion work, and leaning into the discomfort of why is it that I can't just say and ask for what I need, and reframe that into I deserve to get my needs met, and I have the capability to communicate that, right? And that takes assertive communication, right? And then that takes working through the shame that's probably associated with speaking up for yourself.
The shame of actually needing something.
Yeah. Yeah. Because heaven forbid we're anything less than perfect, and that we might actually need through love.
Right.
Wild.
And what women are socialized to put, in America anyway, I don't know about Canada, but women
Canada
are
too.
socialized to put other people first and your needs come last. And especially if you're a parent.
Oh my gosh. Right.
One of my friends one time, and she was very traditional, and this has been 30 years ago when people were more traditional, but she says, I got used to eating cold food because the kids came first. And my mom said, I never in my life had cold food. So my mom taught me by example. We still did the putting others first, but she did a lot of putting herself first. And I looked down on her. I just realized I looked down on her for that.
Yeah.
Because she didn't put me first as her child. Wow. Okay. So I just had a flash. Okay.
Okay. We can chat after if you want. I'm always happy to chat.
How do we break through that socializing that happens from the time you're a toddler?
Oh, I mean, this is super complex, and there's no quick or easy answer to that, right? And I think that this is really, really so important, where a good clinician, therapist, counselor can really help unpack those layers, right? Because there are just so many of them there, right? But I mean, even starting with a place of just considering the opposite of, maybe I do deserve to put myself first, and lean into even just the discomfort of that thought, right? So, it's kind of rewriting essentially the narrative that we've been told by other people, and the narrative that we've subconsciously written for ourselves about self-care, right? So it's lots of work, no easy answer to that one, but it is absolutely something that a narrative that can be rewritten.
Okay. No, go ahead, Mary. I can ask a million questions.
And I have seen this recently on Facebook. Facebook is the only social that I do.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a meme that goes around periodically that says, how high maintenance are you?
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys seen that one? Like, how many pairs of high heels do you own? I'm like, none. Or how many pairs of shoes and high heels, and how many mani-pedis do you do? And one of the things on that list is you get regular massages. And I'm like, how is that high maintenance? That's just basic self-care.
Yes. Thank you, Mary. That is 100% basic self-care. 100%. Absolutely. And you know what? that is actually for me one of my personal non-negotiables so that I don't get burnt out. I have these daily and weekly checks and balances of what do I do to kind of anchor myself into that regulated parasympathetic state. I have my massage lady. I go to her every single week. It is something I budget for, just like my own therapy. I budget for that. Those are my two non-negotiables.
Yep.
Right. Basic.
I forgot I was on mute. Growing up poor, massages, oh, that was a rich people thing. Going to therapy, that was also a rich people thing.
Yeah.
Hiring somebody to fix your washing machine, that's a rich people thing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
But as an adult and not being in that place anymore, it just, I'm starting to realize what seemed like these far off things can be so foundational in helping somebody feel good, do good, have greater success.
Yeah.
Especially like a massage or seeing a therapist or doing self-care. But for something that is meaningful for you. So for me, I don't care about my nails. Are they clean?
Right.
Are they going to get caught on everything? I got so many hangnails right now because I've been doing different crafts that like half of them are bleeding. Like they're not pretty at the moment.
Yeah.
But that's not something that bothers me. It's just like, okay, they're decent. Leave it there. It's great.
Yeah.
But I know it's something that's important for other people. And like I have a friend of mine who's got really thin nails.
Yeah.
So she has to go to the salon so that she doesn't hurt herself on a daily basis. So for her, that is definitely self-care. And I'm like, go you.
100%.
It's not a good thing, but go you.
100%.
So Dr. Maria, I want to make sure that we know where to find you and what your favorite way to communicate is, because I could talk to you for hours and you know it.
Absolutely. And I'm sure we'll chat a little bit later, but the best place to find me would be at my website, www.drfarrell.com. There you can connect with me at that contact form. You can find me on Instagram at Dr. Maria Farrell, and of course on LinkedIn as Dr. Maria Farrell as well too. So basically just type in my name and I should be able to pop up wherever you search.
I had a comment that I just want to share here for a second. It's Tammy. Oh, we haven't seen her in forever.
Hey, Tammy.
Yes, self-care is never selfish. Yeah.
No. We're learned to believe that it is, but honestly, we have to do some of that messaging because when we don't look after ourselves, how can we be there for other people and respond to the demands in our life?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I want to share a very quick story. I turned 40 this year. And my 39th birthday was horrible. So I decided that I'm not having a party. I'm just going to be by myself. And then I realized I don't really want to be by myself. I'm an extrovert. Oh. So I decided I would have a Zoom birthday party.
Okay.
Because most of my friends are in like 15 different countries. They do not live near me. And I decided I would get like nice bling jewelry, a nice ball gown, like evening gown kind of thing. And that it would be a black tie Zoom birthday party. And the thing that I asked for was a gift of words. Only rule was that you can't just say happy birthday and make that be the gift. It has to be something else.
Yeah.
It was one of the most beautiful evenings I have ever had. And it's all recorded. So I can watch all of those beautiful gifts anytime I want.
Perfect. Whenever you need it. Oh, what a gift. Can I copy and paste that for myself? Because that is a wonderful idea.
Like, I'm just going to replay this person over and over. Yeah.
I'm putting that idea down, Laura. Phenomenal.
My 65th birthday is coming up later this year, like at the end of the year. Yeah. And I have already told two of my friends, you guys are excellent planners. You two who don't know each other get to plan my birthday party.
I love that.
Okay, because I know that they will do a fantastic job of it. I was going to do a party for my 60th. I don't usually do parties, but COVID, so I couldn't. Okay. Mm-hmm. But what I was going to do is in the venue, there were going to be 3 boxes, and I don't need presents. You know, I'm to that age where I'm trying to declutter. Yeah. So instead of bringing me something, bring something for the food bank, something for the animal shelter, something for, I forget what the other one was, Children's Hospital or something. And all I need for you to give me is words, because words of affirmation are my language of appreciation. And so I'm going to redo this for the 65th, but what I want from people is, let me know how I have made a difference in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's my goal, is to make a difference. So I want to know how I have impacted these people. And we'll see. We may not even happen, but we'll see what happens. But I love your Zoom idea. I hadn't even thought about that, because
That's
I've got
brilliant.
all over the country, because I've lived in so many different places.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
So,
brilliant.
Dr. Maria, we have about 2 minutes left.
Mhm.
And I do like to hold space at the end of an interview, just in case there's something on your heart or in your head that you just need to share. So what is it that you need people to take away from this conversation today?
I think one of the messages that I am most passionate about sharing is actually the concept of time. And so when I'm looking at time, I see so many people, whether it's in my clinical practice, my consulting practice, or even just out in society, they go through their days in a blur and in a haze. One day becomes another, becomes another, becomes another. And then they get so trapped into doing, producing that they actually don't realize that the years of their life are passing them by.
Mm-hmm.
And we only have a set amount of years. Fingers crossed that we're healthy, that we can go and live and to get perspective. So I think the message with time is to remember that our life doesn't go on forever, and we need to take the changes and the steps now to really do what matters to us and to be there for people who we love.
Mic drop. Cool. I want to call this the official close of your interview, and thank you so much for being here. But what I also like to do is invite you to stay for the next few minutes.
Of course.
Just as like a little bit of a recap of our conversation. So I like to go around and ask what stood out to you. So I'm going to start with you, Dr. Maria. What is something that stood out to you in our conversation today?
Oh, I think Mary and how she got so sick with what was going on physically, from stress, and yourself as well too, Laura. And I think that really just fits so well for me personally with what I've been seeing in the past few weeks, that people are coming and having all of these symptoms, medically unexplained symptoms. I asked them, what's going on in your life? Like, what's going on at home, with relationships, with family, financial stress, what else is going on? And then they tell me all these things. I'm like, yeah, this is your body telling you something, that this is too much. So I think that really the physical symptoms are like, there are early, or depending on how severe, late indicators of, look, something's not okay in life and we need to address this now before things get worse.
That kind of reminds me of the Louise Hay book, where it just lists out all the different ailments and what emotions they're related to.
Yeah.
What about you, Mary? What's something that stood out to you?
I have that book, and I haven't read it in a while. I should go remember where I put it. Time. I have a short-lived family. I think there are 2 people in my family that made it past 80.
Yeah.
My brother was, I hate when I make myself cry. My brother was, he made it to 65. He also hit smoke from the time he was 10, and he wound up with lung cancer. So, I'm coming up on 65. Dad had a stroke at 45. So when I hit 46 without a stroke, I was like, yeah. But we don't have a lot of time.
No, we don't.
And that has me working more on, quote, my legacy, unquote. No spouse, no kids, but I still want to leave something behind, to be remembered. And for me, it's the encouraging people and making a difference in their lives. And I just want to make sure that that's something I do, because you never know.
You never know. No, you never know. It doesn't matter what age you're at. You can be in your like 20s, 30s. I'm, 33, but we would be a fool to think we have 80 healthy years to live. That is not guaranteed, right? Life happens now. Life doesn't happen when we get the job or the promotion or the family. Life happens right now.
Exactly.
Yeah. In my family, the women live to be in their 90s very easily. But the problem is that the women start being diseased around age 40. And so then they live with that disease for decades. Yeah. So I'm like, oh God. And then on top of that, I actually started perimenopause at 33.
Oh my gosh.
So it's like,
wow.
what? And of course, nobody has that conversation until you're 40. And I just turned 40. I've had to like try to figure things out the last 7 years. And then I saw this reel from like CBC television or something saying, is it menopause? I don't know. Is it? And they go to the doctor and everything. And they're all like, I don't know. Is it? Okay. But what stood out to me the most was us actually talking about some of those things that we might not think of as symptoms of burnout or overwhelm, like sarcasm. It's like, oh, it's really eye-opening.
Yeah. Sarcasm can be great, like I mentioned, if it's measured and if it's to help you feel better, right? But when sarcasm turns to dark humor that is uncharacteristic of how dark you usually are, that goes on over time. Ooh, that's got my attention. So yeah.
Definitely
sarcasm in healthy doses.
Healthy dose. Thank you so much, Dr. Maria. Always a delight.
Thank you for having me, Laura. Mary, thank you for sharing and for being here as well today. I really appreciate and value your presence today.
We'll talk soon.
Talk soon. Bye.
So our next guest is behind the scenes. I gotta scroll. Hi, Maya. Just give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join us. I would, if you were actually in the woods, this would be extra amazing.
Can you imagine how great the internet is here in this forest?
Actually, I did one interview a while ago of somebody who was at their cottage, which was in the middle of the woods. And it was a lot of.
But the still shots were. Well, this is where I imagine I would like to be all the time. So it's on my wall to, kind of bring me there when I want to,
Can we all hang out there? Because that seems really lovely.
Yeah, come over.
And am I saying your name right? Is it Maya?
You said Maya correctly, yes.
Okay. I was like, it's not Maya, or I don't know.
The very popular name Maya is going around, but no, I'm Maya.
Really? Okay, Maya. Awesome. So how I love to start off these interviews is just with a question to shake up your pre-programmed autopilot responses, because I want to get to know you as a human being, not just your business, not just your message, because Maya matters too. So here's my question. If you could have other people describe you in just 3 words, I know that's hard, but 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
Warm, loving, and powerful.
I adore those words. I don't think I've heard the word warm before out of any of the interviews I've ever done with this question. And
it invokes, the sense of safety, welcome, inclusiveness, but it gives you the feeling of all those words, which is really what it is. The word inclusive is not the right word. Warm is the feeling that makes you want to go towards something or someone, makes you feel at ease, makes you feel that you can be who you are in their company and feel a reflection, a loving reflection, So I think warm is...
You were speaking my language, because I tell people, I'm like, it's not actually about the words that you choose, because some people are like, oh, but I actually have 5 words. I'm like, that's okay. What it's really about is the energy behind those words and how they make you feel.
Yeah,
that's exactly what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
So I did hear that you're also a vocalist.
Oh, I'm a professional world traveled recording artist and a singer and a songwriter. Yeah,
So
definitely.
then to hear the warm and the loving and the powerful, I was like, oh, now I need to listen to your music. I haven't had a chance yet, so you'll have to send me something. Like whatever your favorite song is, whether it's the most popular or not, I do not care. But like your favorite song, you will have to send me that.
Okay, no problem. Deal.
Awesome. So
All right,
now
I have to know what kind of music you do.
Thanks for asking, Mary. My music is really a fusion because I'm very inspired by multiple like genres. I'm not really limited. I'm more, when you think about the way you would describe an instrument or a musician, you would think, yeah, they play jazz and they play rock and they play, so I would say imagine Shaka Khan meets Freddie Mercury. And like
wow.
mixed together, that would describe me.
Okay.
I got goosebumps.
Now I gotta listen to you. Tell me you're on YouTube.
Of course I'm on YouTube. I have albums. I'm on Spotify. I'm in all those places.
What a combination of voices and spirit, though.
Correct. Yeah, like that being dynamic, super energetic, versatile, unique.
Yeah.
And then just this ability to really like project into the heart of the listener. And a lot of my songs are anthems for empowerment. I like to think that somebody needs a soundtrack in their life and that they'd like to reach for one of my songs when they're going through something. And it's just a tool of, yeah, I got this. And that's what I hope my speaking does as well. It's giving you things by hearing what I share, tools to carry around with you when you're in that dark place and you need to see a way out.
So does your core message revolve around helping people through that dark space into the empowerment?
Yes, I would say that. And I would say that I kind of was trying to analyze, what are the effects of what I do? And I think that the description that came to me is, I'm here to interrupt the darkness and remind people of their own power to impact change, whether it's within their own lives or in the world at large.
Okay, so some of my favorite music, like I'll listen to all genres of music in about 17 different languages because most of the time I might know the lyrics, but I'm not conscious of what the lyrics are saying because to me it's not about the words so much as the feeling behind the words and behind the sounds. I love what I call power vocals or like emotional vocals. How would do you have a way that you like to describe your music as you versus not using other people?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to tell you a story, and the story reflects what you just shared.
Yeah.
So I am also a cultural envoy. A cultural envoy, basically, I have received 17 or more grants from the U.S. State Department and various American embassies. And what it means is I've toured to more than 40 countries, but as a cultural envoy, what happens is they basically host the tour. It's like a humanitarian tour. So I'm doing concerts, I'm doing keynote speeches, I'm doing press, I'm doing all of that. Before I went to China, I was overcome with anxiety because we needed translators for literally everything. And I was like, how are they going to get into my music? How are they going to connect with my songs? And I'm talking about original songs. These aren't covers. And I was reading, this is such an international kind of a story. I was reading at the same time the autobiography of Celia Cruz, the Cuban, very dynamic Cuban artist that had just, man, she's amazing, was amazing. So while I was reading her, I was listening to her music. And even though I couldn't understand all of the Spanish, every word that she sings, I understood what she meant. And it just kind of clicked in my head. I was like, that's the thing. Communication are not the words. The communication is the intention within the words. The communication is the energy that you are projecting. And I went to China, and I was also like, China is the home of Kung Fu and martial arts, where energy and chi and all these things are so important. I was like, I need to project the story to my listener and not worry about if they understood every word. And do you know, this was such a great human experiment, because, or social experiment. They clapped in the same parts of the songs.
No.
I'm not kidding you. And these are originals. It's not like, oh, I was singing a song that everybody would know. No, these are my songs. I never heard them before. And I'm not talking about, there are some obvious places where you clap, you know, like the part where you tell everybody, hey, clap. But I'm talking about they clap the moments that English-speaking audiences clapped. And I really saw that to be true. And then, you know, as analytical as I am, I get into the same thing. Ask yourself, is what you say really the communication, or is what you mean the communication?
Mm-hmm.
Say, yeah.
I can't remember the name of the singer, but he's talking about how nobody's listening to these lyrics anyway. All they're going to listen to is the chorus. And then he has this fun little chorus that people sing, and they're not registering what he's saying. I can picture the guy, I just can't think of his name right now.
Yeah, that's clever. And it's probably a hit, right?
Oh, it's definitely a hit, yes.
But I mean, I was like, you know, when I'm speaking sometimes, let's say to teenagers, I'm like, okay, say hello like you're really happy to see someone. Yeah. Hello. Now say hello like, if you don't run now, I'm going to murder you.
Yeah.
Same word.
Yeah.
So what's registering? It's the feeling that you put into it. It's what you're projecting, the energy you're sending to the listener, and the intention inside of what you're trying to share.
Mm-hmm. This would mean that you are the perfect person to ask about how you can take that same tone, the melody, the cadence, all of that into not a song where there's the backup of the music to help you get that feeling, but as a speaker on a stage.
Correct. So this concept translates as a speaker. And what is very important is when you are planning to speak to your audience, the script, of course, is still important. But I think it's important to kind of visualize or really meditate on what is the impact and what is the takeaway that you want your listener to have. And the takeaway, not just from a sales perspective, like I want them to buy my book, but more like, what is the feeling and what is it that you want them to take into their heart from what you're saying? Mm. And if it's like, I really, really want them to believe in themselves, or I really, really want them to understand what it means to be homeless, really, like, so that they could empathize. It was like their story. You know, if these things, so think ahead before you even enter the scene and hold that within you as you are speaking, because the ultimate communication is that intention that you're walking out on stage with. And if you haven't thought about it and you're just very nervous and paper thin, and all it is just your head's down and you're reading from a script, some people may tune in, some people may tune out. But when you want them to connect, like in a soul way, coming out there, not worrying about perfection as much as communication, right, being received. And in order to be received, you do have to know what it is you're trying to communicate. And I think that this translates for teachers, it translates for speakers, not only for performers.
Yeah.
Okay. And it translates one-on-one and in audiences.
It does.
Translates for writers as well.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It will be read later, but there is an imprint within the writing and within the words.
That's one of the secrets that I use anytime I write something, because what I think in my brain feels like it's 10 times smarter than what I write on the page or that I can get out of my mouth. And so when I write, it tends to be really slow because I want it to be perfect. But before I write anything, because it can get all jarbled, I always write an intention statement of why I'm writing this piece. Like, what do I want people to take away from this piece? So that every sentence or every time I second guess myself or try to edit, I go back to the intention and go, okay, what was the main intention of this? Is what I'm trying to edit taking away from that or adding to it?
So has that been I mean, it sounds like an amazing, I just want to know, like, okay,
Yeah.
so you applied it, but does it work?
Oh, yeah, because I'm like, I want to write 50 things, and then instead of it being 1 page, it's now 7 pages, or maybe I'll take out something that was actually important, because we all want to share so much that we forget that the audience can't understand a fire hose. We really do need to focus. So
Yeah, it's also like cooking or putting on makeup or whatever. It's sort of like if you put everything together, it becomes impossible to decipher what's going on there. You know, if you really want to understand the flavors, you have to. There's a finesse of like the main course, like what is it, the real thing people should focus on, and what supports the main course.
Yes.
You know, or, you know, with a look, like they say, like, don't have too many, where a person doesn't know where to focus. You know, if you have like crazy colored cheeks and crazy colored lips and crazy colored eyes, it just becomes like, where do I look?
Also,
It's so funny you bring that up. I used to do architecture, and I specialized in architecture for mental health and well-being. And that was one of the things that I would really focus on for people is like something like a classroom. You can't have a white wall and a white board and expect the students to be looking at the white board. There's minimal contrast. Their eyes go everywhere. Correct. If you have a dark wall with the whiteboard on it, then the dark automatically leads your eyes to the white and they will pay attention more.
So that's
something like kitchen design. I like cupboards, so everything is behind the closed doors so that when I just look into the kitchen, which is usually the messiest room in the house, it doesn't seem quite so anxiety ridden.
Yeah.
Like
I love it. So I love like this kind of idea, and then translating it as a metaphor into, you know, and how, you know, why? Because I truly believe that truths are true when you apply them in almost every circumstance. So that's what makes it a truth, right? So that's how I test my own truths. Like if I come up with something I believe to be true, I keep trying to apply it in all kinds of settings to see, does it still work here? And does it work here? And does it work here? And then I test myself on, okay, is it a truth? Because it seems to be holding up in all these circumstances.
That's noteworthy.
Yeah. Making notes here.
Yeah. No, I love this. So we talked about writing. Are you also a writer?
Yes, absolutely. So when I first started writing, I was 13. I think I remember having a very inspiring English teacher, and I started writing poems when I was 13. And then I continued. So to this day, I have all my journals since I was a child, except one that got lost. I'm so sad. And I would write for myself, but I found like my shorthand was poetry, because I didn't want to do the longhand because I already knew what happened. It was for my own purposes. So I didn't need to say, and then I walked to the store, and then I took $1 out, and then I paid. You know, I just could just go, you know, skip, skip, walk, walk, pay, you know, whatever, you know, just as an example.
Oh, I like that.
So, and I would analyze all of these philosophies and write essays, and something would occur to me and I would write it. And so, yeah, so then through the years, I started to share my writing, first of all in songs, but then as well as just, you know, my essays and interviews and things like that.
Nice. I love that you had a supportive teacher. My English teacher was not very supportive.
You
I
only
remember
had one?
okay, I remember this one because she wrote on one of my papers in red pen, of course, back in the day. You will never be a writer.
Oh God, who are these people that get these jobs?
I
So
know.
sorry.
But then I also, okay, there are so many teachers like that, but then there are also so many teachers who do encourage you. And I want people to know that there are both kinds, and find those teachers like yours that do encourage you.
Yeah.
That say that you have any sort, like the teachers that open you up, not the teachers that close you off.
Right.
Believe
And
those
they do
ones.
exist.
What'd you say, Mary?
I said they do exist, the ones that open you up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. There are a lot of people who have just had to find their own way for the longest time before they interacted with a mentor or, you know, someone who showed them in a loving way.
Yeah.
But I mean, we just try the best that we can to trust that we are here on purpose, trust that we are worthy to take up space.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I actually tell people, you don't just deserve to take up space or are worthy to take up space. The fact that you exist is proof that you have a space that is your inheritance. And you are here, and the space around you is your inheritance. And you have a right to fill that space up, particularly because absolutely no one else can fulfill the space that was designated for you.
Maya, the immediate question that comes to mind is, and I'm sorry, I'm looking for polite words. You and I don't look alike. Okay, let's say it that way. We look a little bit different. And so I'm curious if when you were younger, or how long it took you to realize that you are worthy just because you exist and that you have this inheritance.
In the beginning, now I'm mixed heritage.
Okay.
My father is white American and my mom is Black American. So when you're a kid, it's just everything is so like, are you Black? Are you white? You know, but ultimately I learned to speak in terms of heritage. For example, my father is Scottish, Irish, English in his roots, and my mother is African with Jamaican and Cherokee in her line. And all of these things are within my DNA. Now, I grew up in Brooklyn in a Black neighborhood, and that means that I stood out and I felt super awkward and uncomfortable. I got a lot of things and comments and said to me every day just walking down the street. And not all of them were nice. Just people who don't even know me would say mean things to me because I wasn't brown enough. So now the idea of being worthy to take up space, I first had to stop hating myself because I came to a place of hating myself. I didn't hate myself necessarily because of other people. I hated myself because I was frustrated that I didn't just fit in somewhere. I didn't just automatically slide in and belong. And then I started to criticize myself to the point where I was the most abusive person to me in my life. And I will say that spirituality is the first point of me being able to believe it. And I'll tell you what I mean. My mom is an amazing mom. My mom would stand me in front of the mirror in the hallway and she says, look in the mirror. Who do you love? Aww. How cool is that? I want to cry because it's the coolest thing for a mom to do. And I would look and I would say me, but I didn't mean it. I just wanted to believe it. You had a question?
No. Just you said it with the question mark instead of a period.
Yes. So why I said spirituality is because when I was 16, now I didn't grow up with any kind of religion or anything. Nothing was impressed upon me. I entered into a spiritual life by choice when I was a sophomore in high school. And I started to pray to God, and I was talking to God. And one of the first things God told me was, you're not allowed to hate yourself. Hang on, let me rewind. He said, he, she, God is all, not man or woman. God said, you're not allowed to hate my creation. So you're not allowed to hate yourself. Wow. And I was like, okay, I'll start being nice to myself for you. And what started to transpire was I had to start catching those abusive self-talk that was going on in my head. And I would stop and I'd say, nope, I'm not, I can't talk like that. And what happened was when my brain wasn't crowded with self-abuse, I started to actually allow the thoughts and opinions and me to exist without being stomped out. And I was like, oh, there she is. Oh, I mean, she's actually pretty cool. Wow. Okay. She has these different thoughts. And so the things that I hated about myself actually were just that I was very intellectually advanced at a young age. And I couldn't talk to my peers the way that my brain thought.
Right.
And so I thought that meant something was wrong with me. Mm-hmm. But it turns out it didn't mean something was wrong. It just meant that I'm different, but that's actually your power. Right. Your power actually is somewhere within that thing about you that is not like everyone else, the uniqueness of you. But we often, when we are introduced to that thing that's different or weird about ourselves, we beat it up and we punish ourselves for it. And then therefore we do not nurture it. And then when you don't nurture it, this power, your superpower, part of your superpower goes undeveloped and it becomes a distortion, So, sorry, I have a lot of philosophies on this stuff.
No, you're good.
No, it's great. Yeah. I'm actually inspired to send you an article that I've been reading. I haven't quite finished it because it's a long article, but I have felt so seen. And you had brought up a lot of points within that article. And the way that you're sharing, I was like, this isn't an article for everybody, but I do want to share it with you. And I think you relate to it a lot.
Thank you.
So I wrote myself a note to send it to you.
Send it to me too.
Sure.
So Mary, and it's saying, looking different or whatever from each other, but we all have our own versions of these experiences.
Yes.
And so someone may be surprised and say, oh, well, you seemed like you were popular or you were well liked, but I didn't accept myself. Yeah. And I didn't feel that I was insecure and I was all of these things. And that turning point of allowing this different side of me to have a life, then you could understand what it is. But if you constantly are I'm perfect. Oh, I never said it like this. Okay, my hair is curly, right? Yeah. When I was young, I hated the fact that my hair was curly. So I was always trying to slick it down as tight as I can. And I would straighten it and slick it down. And no matter what, these like little ripples would pop up on the sides. And I literally didn't even think of the term curly. I was just like, what is wrong with my hair? It was how I viewed it, right? It won't stay straight. It always does this thing. So why am I using that? Because that's a perfect metaphor. If you never let it be, you can never even understand what it is.
Exactly.
And if you don't understand what it is, you can't take care of it. So this goes with you. If you are constantly beating down those things that are different about yourself, then you've never considered it to understand what it is, and therefore you can't develop it.
I'm using that.
Yup.
I will credit you, but I'm using that.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to ask
the things I wrote in my book. I mean, I wrote a book last year that's just in draft form, but I was like kind of like getting all of this crush of these stories and things that I've had through the years, and then it's together with stories from around the world and how I came to the conclusions and all that.
Was that also in the 90s when you were like, oh, gotta get it straight?
Pretty much.
I was like, back in the day, like when the style was like, how tight can I get it to my head?
Like inspired by Sade.
Yeah. Back in the 60s, women ironed, teenage girls ironed their hair because straight hair. Laura, you would have been perfect in the 60s. And I had curly hair.
No, I straightened mine.
Okay. But I had very curly hair. And I was like, as long as I kept it long, it was good. It would just be wavy. But if I cut it short, which is how I usually wore my hair, it was just a head full of curls.
And you know, when somebody says like, how long is your hair? And somebody goes like this. And I'm like, for me, when you say, how long is your hair? I'm like, this. How long is your hair? I don't know, like this. It defies gravity. But see, now I like it.
Good. I've always loved curly hair. Growing up, my best friend had really curly hair, and she did marry. She used an actual iron, and she burned her hair so many times trying to do that because she would sneak it from her mom. And so she didn't always have the proper tools. She never had the product for it. And sometimes she'd have like the lines in her hair.
Wow.
But I was always jealous because I'm like, my hair was never like straight, but it was like weirdly straight. So it just like, it always got tangled because nothing sat nicely, but it also didn't have wave or curl. So it just, I felt like a dog growing up.
You're in the middle somewhere.
I was in the middle. So I'm like, these curls are beautiful. If I just had like some sort of texture to my hair, we all want what we don't have.
Exactly.
You do have a texture to your hair. That's the thing that we're getting at here, my friends.
I know. The more
texture.
you know.
You know, then the other thing is, but finding the right things to complement your texture. I'm telling you, this is all these metaphors, they work well in all the places, right? Finding the people who resonate on your vibe, you know, and that complement to you helps you to flower into the fullest possibility. It's the same with our hair, the right hair products, you know, you might have to try something different than your friend uses, but then you realize, oh, this is magic in my hair. Oh my God.
And you have all noticed that if you go through tremendous stress or a huge medical issue, it can change how your hair looks or behaves. Because I had straight hair for like 5 years after the stroke. And it wasn't until I had a cerebellar stroke. It wasn't until I saw a picture of myself in 2013 and compared it to the picture in 2018, which was like 2 years after the stroke. And I was like, oh my God, my hair went straight. I've never in my life had straight hair. So the stressors that we're under, to go back to your analogy, you know, yes, if you have the right products, if you have the right peeps, but you still got to watch out for those stressors because they will take us out of being who we are.
What's going on inside? I have a quick question about that. When you just reflecting back on it, when the hair became straight, were you like, yay, my hair is straight?
No.
No, I knew it.
Because it's not who I am. It was like, what happened to my identity? You might as well have changed my freaking name.
Do you see what I'm
What
saying?
happened here?
Mm-hmm.
How
This
deep
is not
is
me.
that? How deep is that? It actually ends up being like there's something missing or something off, like a part of me is not me. Like once we embrace those things about ourselves that they are unique to us. They make you one of a kind, and there's only one you that ever was and ever will be. So when you embrace that and somebody tries to take that away from you,
yeah,
I don't know. Interestingly, it's so weird that I struggled with being different, like meaning like that I stood out and it made me feel uncomfortable. Because on the other side of it, I never wanted to be like other people necessarily.
yes.
Because like if somebody was like, oh, you look like so-and-so, and I'd actually feel mad. I'm like, I don't look like them. You know, like I'm my own person.
Yeah.
I wrote a poem my freshman year in college where I described myself as a nonconformist desperately trying to fit in. I knew that I was a nonconformist. I was meant to be unique and original and individual, but good God, I wanted to fit in. I just wanted to be like everybody else. Now I treasure that. But at 20, at 18, We just all want to belong somewhere.
You know what started to occur to me once I, like I said, stopped hating myself and then started slowly nurturing, kind of warming up to just being who I am. What started to happen is instead of fitting in, people started to fit into me.
Yes.
You suddenly become an anchor. You suddenly become, instead of trying to belong to a club of some sort, like you become the club, or people who, you know, naturally gravitate to you. You guys just end up forming your own thing.
And it may be, were you done? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You stopped for a breath. So, you know, but it may be, and I just had this thought, that those of us who feel so out of place because I don't fit in this group, I don't fit in that, but I have friends in all of these different groups.
Yes, me too.
Maybe we're the bridge.
Oh, we are.
That's exactly another point, and that is exactly me as well. I was able to jump between all the different social groups, and maybe they would have me, but I didn't feel like I belonged.
Right.
Then it had to start with me enjoying being myself and being grounded in that, and ultimately starting to learn that the characteristics I came into this world with were designed to match my journey.
Right.
So I am a bridge, and I am a type of person that brings others together. And I have another one of my metaphors is, if a hammer had feelings, a hammer would have an insatiable desire to bang things. And this is because it is perfectly designed to bang things. So I believe that we have characteristics that line up with the things that we also feel compelled to do, and that they match our design. And so me being ambiguous looking, for example, I didn't know that I was going to travel to more than 40 countries when I was a little kid. But being in more than 40 countries and not being easily identifiable actually has become a benefit and a safety in all these environments.
That's so beautiful. Just more proof that I need to send you this article. You know, right? Okay. We have about 5 minutes left. So I do want to make sure that we know where to find you, and of course, your favorite way to communicate.
Okay. So everybody, knowing my name is the biggest part. Maya Azucena. If you throw that in Google or a backslash or @ symbol, MayaAzucena. I have a website. I have a new masterclass. It's called the I Am Enough Masterclass. Oh. My last album is called I Am Enough, which is on Spotify and Apple.
Okay.
And I am most active on Instagram as far as daily updates.
Is your book also going to be called I Am Enough?
I think the term is perhaps a little too popular for it to be a book title. Yeah. So there'll be a different title for the book, but certainly is inspired by all of these themes.
And if we wanted details on your masterclass, that's on your website.
Yes. My website is my name, believe it or not, shockingly.com. And I mean, or if you just Google I Am Enough Masterclass and Maya, you'll find it. There's a landing page on Squarespace, and you can buy into the masterclass or hit me for a direct, session.
All of this sounds lovely. I'm going to be listening to your music so much, because one of the things that I want to do, like I love to sing. Vocals has been something that has helped me express emotion that I didn't know how to express since I was a kid.
Wow.
Oh yeah. And especially being a woman in North America, we're told, do not be loud, do not have that power in your voice, all of it. So even just being loud and holding a note without putting the vibrato in it, to me is like the biggest emotional act of rebellion that I had as a kid that could help me feel better.
So listen to the song "I Am Enough." You're gonna love it. And we could do a whole nother talk just on expressing our voice. Like one day, if you want, you just tell me. I would love to, that's another favorite subject. So I really appreciate this opportunity. Really enjoyed meeting you both. And thank you so much for sharing bits of your personal stories with me too.
Definitely. So with the couple minutes that we have left of the official interview, I'd love to just ask if there's anything on your heart or in your head that you just need to share with people. What might that be?
I want to say that I know that the world is a chaotic place. And sometimes our North Star is within. Okay. And so please know that everything is going to be okay. It just may look different when things are over, but remember that we are still here. And when I say we, I mean good people, I mean light workers, I mean change makers, I mean creatives that want to make a difference. We are all still here. So we got this, we got each other. That's what I want to share.
Ooh, that reminds me just how much singers and speakers, and especially those creative types, help to create a foundation of language for society to use. So when we change our language, it changes the language of society moving from that point on, especially the more that it's shared.
I'm telling you, Laura, we got to come back and do a talk just on this. Seriously. That's really incredible, because we are making history. And it's legacy, and you are absolutely right. The language we put out there gets imprinted. And if you're in as a public figure, you are giving imprint for what can be next. Yeah, I love it.
So I'm going to call this the official close of your interview. Thank you so much. But what we normally do is we take that last 5 minutes, because this is being repurposed, and so we have a time limit for that. The last few minutes that we have, I love to go around just for a recap and ask everyone something that really stood out to them. And I'm going to start with you, Maya. What is something that stood out to you in our conversation today?
I want to say, actually, the last thing that you stated about how creatives are creating the language, of the future. And so what we put out there is so valuable, because, we are the ones that are informing how the future looks back at this time. I mean, that's my interpretation of what you said, but it really was, it's a takeaway for me for sure. And I absolutely love that perspective. I will keep that.
I may have to put that into a video now. I'm writing myself a quote. It's basically like creatives create the language, the vision, and the drive for what motivates us moving into the future, to take the realism into the vision.
And we are the light.
Otherwise, we always stay the same.
Say the last part. We always what?
Stay the same.
Our role, you mean, in society?
If creatives don't create, then there's nothing moving what's real and what's today forward. Right? Like, that's part of our job.
It's not only policy makers and things like that. Exactly. And Maria, what did you say?
I'm tying on to Laura, and it's not my takeaway, but I just got to throw this in there. We're the light bringers, and sometimes that's shedding light into dark. Excuse me, now I'm all choked. Sometimes it's shining a flashlight and watching roaches run scurrying, so that you know that they're there, so you can get rid of them. But a lot of times it's your background. And I have spent this whole time just looking at the light coming in from the side of your trees. And that's what we do. We bring light into people's darkness and help them something, the words left, I don't know, but we are light bringers.
Yeah. There we go.
Absolutely. I feel it. And sometimes, as dark as it feels, then it actually means like, this is your time as a light worker. It's like, this is my time. This is it. Go in there, get in the game. Get in the game. You're needed.
None of us are here by accident. We are in this timeline. You know, I wasn't born in 1860. I was born in 1960 for a reason. Okay. I have had the life that I have had for a reason. I have a page and a half of notes from listening to you, Maya,
Yes.
but the takeaway goes clear back to very early in, and I put stars all beside it to make sure I wouldn't forget that communication is not the words, it's the feeling or the intention behind the words. And then, Laura, you added to that about beginning with your intention statement when you write. And I'm going to take both of those into the self-help memoir that I'm writing, because that's what I want to come out. I want people to have the feeling of the encouragement, not just, oh, here's a bunch of words. Yes. So that has been incredibly powerful for me.
My biggest takeaway was that you said that you were a cultural envoy. I didn't know that was a thing. But then to share that story of you going to China and trying to figure out how you can connect to an audience that does not speak the language verbally, but speaks the language emotionally. I'm like, oh, that's so good. My daughter listens to K-pop. I don't know what they're saying. All the other 16 different languages I listen to, I don't know what they're saying, but I get it. Like, it just, that part stands out so much to me. I love that.
There's an old song, we're going back to the 80s now, but one of the lines is, there's no misinterpreting the language of the heart.
Good one.
Yeah. And you can experiment, like I was saying, truth, you know, you can try it in all the different environments. And I've had the good fortune to try that one out. So not only just to have the theory of it, but to actually try it out in many environments. And wow, like it's a thing for real. Like, you want to connect with people, come forward before you even speak, knowing what impact you want to have, or what energy you want them to take away, or what story you want them to feel. I love it. This was so wonderful. Thank you.
Like, as soon as I saw your picture, I was like, oh, you and I have, because I read eyes, like, you and I have a lot in common. Like, I need to connect with this woman. And then today, like, having a conversation with you and getting to know you as a human being, as well as the business side of you, I love you even more.
Well, it's a hashtag Love Fest.
Love Fest.
All right. I told people to tune in, and I can't wait for them to be able to see any playbacks as well. And this was seriously a great pleasure. So please keep in touch with me if you wish. I would love to stay in touch with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Maya.
Take care. Bye. Much love to you both. Bye.
Wow.
Okay.
Just
now,
wow.
If you don't mind, Mary, I would love to just take a minute before our next guest gets here. Do you mind if I charge you of sharing some of the insights that you've had so far today?
Oh, gosh.
For like 60, maybe 90 seconds? You think you could do it?
If sarcasm turns to dark humor, it's a signal.
Okay.
My dog needs to go outside. Communication is not the words, it's the feeling or the intention.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna go. You share that. I'll just be right back. Hi, Victor. Just give me 1 minute and I'll be right back. Thank you, Mary.
So she'll be right back. I had others. Hang on. Clare Rosenfield just blew my mind in so many different directions. And I've got to go look for her children's books, because I think those are going to be so cool. Tammy's thing about putting the chips and the chocolate in the front of the shopping cart, I've got to try that, because I make the mistake of shopping when I'm hungry, and then I come home with a shopping cart full of sugar. Does anybody else do that? Is it just me? Yeah, no, everybody does that. And from Dr. Maria, do I give to others what I need to get? How often do we do that? One of my college friends, one of my lifetime friends, as I call them, actually taught social work. We were in social work classes together back in the day. But she has constantly challenged me to be responsible for my own happiness, which means asking for what you need instead of hoping that somebody's just going to pick up on it. Because other people don't always pick up on our signals. And so the more that we can say, I'm sorry, I'm feeling really down today, I need a hug, rather than hinting for that, the more likely it is that we're going to get it.
Okay, I'm back.
You're back.
All right.
I'm
Okay,
going to let
Victor,
my dogs out.
sure. Yeah. Do you want me to take you off? Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Victor, just give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join us on stage.
Okay, I am.
Hi.
Hello.
Oh, I like that yours is the automatic. Nice. Sorry, I needed to just take a moment. Like, my daughter got home from school. She's having some issues, and so I have to check on her. If I
understand.
run, it's because I need to. Please excuse me. I will mute it. But so far, we're okay at the moment.
Okay,
So
I got it.
I like to start off every interview with a question so that I don't get your elevator pitch. I want to get to know Victor instead of just Victor's business and Victor's message. So here's my question. If you could have other people describe you in 3 words, what would you love those 3 words to be?
A person of integrity, that you could trust him, and a great leader.
So integrity, trust, and a great leader. What do those words and those concepts have to do with the core message that you have for people?
Leadership is taking initiative, is helping others. That would be the leadership. Is, I guess, you get to the point where it's all me, and at some point becomes enough, and then you get the revelation why I'm not that happy, and then you get to the next stage where you realize you need to help others. By helping others, you're helping yourself. So that would be the leadership. The integrity is something that really dear to me, right from the way I was raised, and I always look at the life through those lenses. So, if, in other words, I get to the environment where there's a lack of integrity, there's a question always, temptation to lower your standards, and so it's fair. Just like I remember, I noticed that 2 of my employees met during the morning, and they would not even say hi to one another. They would just avoid one another. So I thought there must be a conflict. So I called this person, one of them, to my office, and I said, "What is going on? Are you guys having a conflict?" And he said, "Oh no, let me explain." He said, "Coming every morning, I usually say, 'Hi, Andre. Hi, Andre. How are you?' And she would answer. But then one day I'm thinking, and he said, 'Why is it always me? It should be like her turn.'" And then so he doesn't doesn't ask her next time, or and and she doesn't provide the initiative, and that's why they keep avoiding themselves. So because he wants to see there's a justice in it, to justify his behavior. And so usually in those cases, people, without even noticing, they would lower their standards to somebody who is less moral than you were at one point. So that's why I'm saying it's something that you carry with your life. It becomes your tool of influence, and then you see it's more than that. It's like that's the tool that creates the culture. If it wasn't for that tool, I don't think the word the word leadership, the leader would actually even work, because it won't be effective. But the reason why it was effective, because at some point people see that your words matching what you do, your action, and you become for them like a role model. They trust you, and then it becomes genuine relationship.
Well, so our guest co-host is back. I'm just adding her to the stage. There we go.
Mhm.
So Victor, integrity, trust, great leader. You talk about leadership a lot. Is that part of your core message? Is that something that you've always wanted to teach people, or has it
Oh
just?
no, I would probably say like I would, and probably until maybe the age of 27, the word leadership, it would be such a foreign word that I would be shy to admit that I'm a great leader. And then I guess it's when you start putting the right meaning, because leadership, it's not about get people's recognition. It's not about getting the title. It's not about the title. It's about taking responsibility to help others.
Yeah. There's a lot of conversation about leadership and who should be a leader and how some people are just kind of thrown into leadership. Do you prefer to be a leader, or are you one of those people who are like, if there's nobody else, then I'll jump in?
That's a really good question. That's a really good question. Um, I guess for me it was natural. In other words, it was natural when I saw the need. I I would I would not simply ignore that if I see the need, and I would not be the last person to ask. Okay, um, to wait until there is nobody else in the room want to lead. So, but I guess mm, maybe it's who is in the room. If that would be like Trump and Elon Musk sitting, then I'll probably say, if you guys don't do it, then maybe I will do it. But otherwise, I will wait for them on them first.
It
Depends
makes
who is
me
in the
think,
room.
yeah, it makes me think of like high school projects where the teacher says you need 5 people in your group, and there's one group over here who just kind of goes, well, I don't want to lead, and like nobody wants to lead, so nothing gets done. And then you see this other group over here where the one person is like, well, you're doing that, and you're doing that, and you're doing that.
Mhm.
And then of course everybody in between.
Right. I guess for me, if that was a play, kind of like we're trying to rehearse
Mhm.
and imagine life situation,
Yeah.
I might just um, stay inactive. But when the real life challenge, I like the real life challenge, because uh, that is the time when you can see who is the leader, who is not. There is no competition then. But if you have in the class like you described, then you got the competition, and then you have to prove it. Why you? It's like you raise the hand. I don't want to be in a situation where I have to prove why me. But
Yeah.
I believe when the challenge comes, then that's what it shows, who is the leader, who is not. And there is a level, obviously, there is level of leadership. There is, and so I would probably, as long as people can do it, yeah, why not? I would not take away that responsibility from somebody else if they can do it. So it depends the level of challenge, because the level of challenge will will determine who is that leader that now should lead.
There's a lot of people talking about leadership in different ways. Where do you find people start to go astray in the way that they describe leadership in 2025 moving forward from here?
I guess is like it was for me when I began my company, and I was in the shoe of the person who was disrespected, and I said to myself, once I open the business, I will respect people, and then the regular day starts. Now you are the boss. You have employees working for you, and they have to follow your lead to show results. And so, what do you do when the result is not there? What you said before, I'm not going to use the stick and carrot in order to motivate my people. You make the commitment to yourself, but then there is lack in results. So again, you can come and use the fear, you will be fired if I don't see it, or you can call to the office and say, look, what is going on in your life? I could see you are talented, you have a potential, but for some reason I don't see your passion. What is going on? And the person opens up and says, well, we're in a divorce right now with my wife, and you're trying to get into the situation. You understand that person as a human, and you say, you know what, take a day off. Why don't you just go, and I'll pray for you. And that's one way of handling. And still tomorrow that person has to come back and show some results. So those temptations, those things will determine what would be the style of leadership you are. And if you, like, I committed that I will not use the stick. Maybe sometimes I'll use the carrot, but I will not use the stick to motivate my people. So for a lot of people, we agree at the beginning, oh yeah, I also, just like you. But then when the life throw you a challenge and you're under the curve, then would really show who you are. And not everybody could pass the test. Not everybody could pass the test. In that, even you don't have to go far. You don't have to have a business. It starts with a family. It starts with your kids, because kids they are the most truthful people, especially teenagers. The truth they can tell you right to your face. It's like nobody can. Like how much they hate you, and what you have not given, and stuff like that. And so it starts there. It starts with the family.
Yeah. With my daughter last month, she wasn't having a good time with her health, and she was asking for her friends to come over, and basically the argument got to the point of, we agree to disagree, and we agree that I know she's going to be mad at me probably for the next 48 hours, but that's how things are going to end.
Yeah.
It's like, I know that I need to take the leadership role, especially when it comes to her health and her development and that kind of stuff. And sometimes she's like, I'm a teenager. I'm old enough on my own to be my own leader. And you're just like,
yeah.
Oh, fine.
Exactly.
Pay me for 48 hours. Victor, do you have any stories of wonderful examples of leadership that you just, that just admire you? It's like, we need more of that.
Well, I guess there was a time in my life when I was when I was we were on the freeway. That was many years ago. I don't do this now, but we were on the freeway driving. This is like a not regular size minivan. This is one of the larger
Oh.
one, and I didn't realize that the employee who was driving didn't have the driver license. So as we're driving on the freeway, he screams, and I was sleeping on the passenger chair, and then he's like yelling, like, "Hey, there's a cops behind us. Can you switch with me? Can you switch with me?" And I was like, we're driving 65 miles an hour. We're driving. He's asking to switch on the way, not stopping, but like during during this driving experience.
Yeah.
So I was just like, without giving extra thought, I need to rescue my guy. And actually, I took his chair and I got a ticket. And so that's the funny story. And I guess so I guess people would say, "Oh yeah, I want to have a boss like that."
Yeah. I guess the takeaway is like a boss that's willing to stand up for you.
A boss
Yeah.
that has your back. A leader that has your back is somebody that you can trust because you know they're going to be there for you. You know, hopefully not in that particular type of situation again, but you know they've got your back, and that is so critical in the U.S. especially. I'm sorry, y'all. I've done corporate for decades in the U.S., and those kind of bosses are hard to find. They're almost impossible to find.
Yeah.
And worse in retail, which is where I am now.
Mm. Unfortunately, and that's unfortunately because it just on the long term, it's actually help you overall your business as well. Just like to give you another example, like there was a time I had to oversee day-to-day activity of the business. I don't do this now because it's run by the franchisees of every region, and then I was told by our manager that one of the employees who I've been preaching about trust, and you said she's taking advantage. She's showing the face like she's comes to work, but she doesn't. She's not working. We know that for a fact. And I knew that I had numerous conversation with that person, and it's like, and I took it personally. It's kind of like hurts. You know what? It's like a betrayal. Like, why would you do that? I'm thinking, why would you want to stay here as long as you get paid? But then you don't produce. You don't do what you're supposed to do. And so I call her to my office, but uh, but then another thought comes to my mind, that anger that I felt is changed. Like, what if she's in trouble? What if there is a trouble? And I'm saying, look, this is what I hear, and I know this is not who you are, and I do realize that you have a bills to pay, and probably that's why I'm guessing you are still coming here. You are pretending that you are working, but you are not. So what is going on? And she opens up crying, and she says, 2 days ago I was at the psychiatrist's office, and he said, look, all of your family, your mom, your sisters, they all using the antidepressant. In other words, this is your turn. This is your time. And she said through crying, I know what those done to my mom, what those done to my sisters. I don't even recognize them anymore. And she said, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And when she admits that, I was just like, whoa. I was just about to kick her in the butt, and send her to that office back, and to say, yeah, give me that, because everybody hates me and my boss is terrible one. He doesn't understand me. But instead, when I heard that, I said, you know what? I want to help you. And there is one book that I know that actually helped me as well. I wrote down the name of the book. So can you promise me? And I give her cash to go buy that book. And can you promise me you'll get that book? And all I'm asking you to go and take at least 3-4 days leave. You'll get paid when you come back, because I just want to make sure that she's going to be reading, not crying. And when you come back, tell me what is that book about. Just share with me, because I love that book so much. And when she come back, she was different person. She was just like with a smile, such a genuine smile, very genuine smile. And later she said, when you mentioned that go by the book, I thought that's your way to get rid of me. I still didn't believe that you're going to do this for me, that I could truly come back after you said 3-4 days and I would still get paid. But then when I realized I got paid, when I realized it wasn't done to get rid of me, and that you truly had that for me, you're for me, it changed her completely. And she became like a child. And on the future, if she's like taking 5 minutes break, she would go like a child, and then don't pay me for 5 minutes because it didn't work as well. Like almost if is funny as this to go to admit something like that. And so to me at that moment, it was just like emphasize how much people have, what a potential people carry. And if you truly care for them, they would care for your business as well, if you do that genuinely.
It's so rare to have people care for us, especially people that we don't know that well, whether it's our coworker or our boss or somebody we met randomly on the internet. And on top of that, there are many people who do still feel uncomfortable when anybody is nice to them. I get it all the time. They're like, how are you smiling all the time? Are you sure you're this type of person? And then they see me in my DMs, or they see me live, or they see different things that I've done, and they're like, you're the same person. We rarely get that. Like, how is this you all the time? I was like, what you see is what you get.
That's right. That's right.
I love that story. I know I've heard it before, but it's such a good one, Victor.
Yeah.
Because curiosity and caring and getting people to work from a place of gratitude, it's like this magic dust that you've put on your employees to just help them feel secure, and then to work from that place of being secure. Good. So go ahead, Mary.
One of the leadership gurus, whose name I don't remember, Maxwell, Simon Sinek, I don't know. But one of my bosses used to quote them all the time with seek to understand. And that's what I'm hearing Victor demonstrate, is he was seeking to understand as opposed to just going in to bulldoze or run roughshod. He wanted to understand what was going on, and that people leave jobs because of bosses. If I worked for him, I would never leave. I'm just saying. And I have left jobs because of bosses. And if I worked for Victor, I'd be there for life.
Thank you.
I used to work retail, Mary, and sometimes like we need people to know it's not the business. It really is the individual, and that leadership does matter. Because I had two bosses, and they felt like complete opposites. I had the one boss that would come in and they'd tell you everything that you did wrong as a group and as an individual in front of the group, only to tell you what to do for the rest of the day. And then we had the other boss that came in and said, here are the things that need attention today. Does anybody have any insight, because you're the ones on the floor, not me, about maybe how we might need to shift our priorities today? Like, let me know if there's anything. And she's the one that I could go up to, even if, because I worked for a department store, if we had a sale down in toys, then usually attention would go down to toys, make sure everything is clean so people can find stuff, so we can sell it. But I remember one time when toys was on sale and she asked me to go clean toys because I was a floor walker. I was like, but linens is literally all over the floor. Like there are pillows where the sheets should be and everything's out of the bags, and because we had just had a sale in linens.
Of course, yeah.
And she was like, oh my God, toys isn't that bad. Okay, clean up linens then. And then when it's decent, she's like, go check on toys. But she would be the only boss that would actually listen to the people.
Yeah.
And everybody loved when she would work. They would try to switch shifts to make sure they were working when she was working. It's so impactful.
It is.
That's great. No, the amount of the people that seeking help is just tremendous. It's a lot. If somebody would just listen. I just did the tour for the last, at the end of the year, I have done a tour to go through different states. It was a group of speakers, and I was one of those speakers that we spoke on the subject of business and trying to help people in their careers and finding their callings and stuff. And it was a lot of young people. And then once I'm done with my speech, I thought, why don't I offer them a free coaching session, just like one free coaching session that they call me. And at first, the only reason I was willing to commit to that because I thought, well, how many people can actually do that? And I thought maybe there will be like 5 at the most, but it was just like out of let's say out of the 100 people, almost all of them wanna. They went straight away to my calendar and sign up, and I was just like, oh man, what have I done? So I went through the mountains of calls just this recently for the last December, and by the January, my goal was to finish by the new year, but it was a mountains of the phone calls, and many of them that I listened to is just they just need to have ears that somebody would listen to. And I would ask them, some of them, they're young, very young. And I would say, can you talk to, just like you talk to me, could you talk to your parents like this? And they said, no, because the parents have agenda. The parents have their own agenda and they're busy, have their own life. And I was just like, it was a shock to me because this is not who I want to be remembered by my kids. It's like all of a sudden you start analyzing yourself and thinking, I hope I'm giving enough attention for my kids. I hope they don't have to go outside and looking for free coaching session because they cannot talk to me directly. Because I won't be able to hear them, just to hear them. And obviously there was a lot of where they needed help, just like to understand themselves, to understand their priorities, and help them to make the right decision because somebody's stuck somewhere with a bad boss and want to get rid of, but don't have enough faith to change. And you're trying to figure out, okay, what do you think? Your calling. What do you think you like to do? Where you don't have to look at the clock all the time and thinking how much time is passed, because when you have passion, you will be surprised how time quickly runs. Even simple questions like this, but they were just so grateful, so grateful for somebody who would hear them and help them with simple advice as this, or somebody who needed more advice, obviously, who run bigger businesses. They would talk to somebody who knows that background and has a lot of experience who helped them as well. But it was just the mountains and mountains of people. So that's what got to surprise my. I was shocked about that.
Victor, I want to shift our conversation a little. You had mentioned that you were a speaker.
Yes.
So this is Amplify Your Message. I know that there are many ways to share your message. Why did you decide to become a speaker?
It was one time I tried. First of all, one time I tried. I loved it so much. It just yes, but before I went on stage the very first time, it was just I would say no. I would. I was so afraid. I was so afraid. I hold myself until I made the commitment. I tell that host, I said, yeah, you can put me on the list. That was many years ago. And once I told him that, now I'm like, there is no way back. I have to. Otherwise I would keep delaying. I would just keep changing, keep canceling. And then one time when I came on stage and I shared my heart on stage, it was just something else. And then when you hear people, they tell you that, like I remember I went to a business conference and I didn't know that some of those bosses force their people to be there. So you come and you see a lot of crowds and you think they're all willing to be there. And then one guy, when I finished, he stood up and he said that I don't want to come here. But my boss said if I don't, then I'm going to lose my job. So I had to come. But then he said, if I knew this, I would I would come here every day just to listen to this speaker. So when you hear that, that gives you a lot of motivation to do that, because people give you that uh, confirmation that this is what you should do, that this is help others. And so I like that presentation on stage. And
Oh, sometimes that happens. Can we still hear you, Victor?
Come back.
Usually it'll kick somebody off the main screen if both audio and visual are gone.
Mm-hmm.
But he's still here, which means there's some sort of connection. Maybe we just lost audio. Who knows?
I don't know.
I think he's just
It's
loading.
technology. It's confusing.
That's okay. We've had times where I had to Facebook video call people and just talk to my phone. Like microphone up to the phone, headset on. Oh yeah.
That is the sign of a good, I was going to say trainer, but speaker as well, that you adapt and improvise and overcome, which is, I think, the Marine Corps motto, but it's what we do all the time in the public world.
I'm just going to ask him in the background. Are you still here?
Yeah, because it started to spin and then it quit.
Or is it internet issues? Because sometimes if it's just the internet, but StreamYard still can connect to something, then they'll stay, but then it'll just go black.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, Mary, what? Because we just show must go on.
I got notes.
You got notes. That's the best part. I love you so much for doing that. What's something that stood out to you so far?
Leadership is about taking responsibility to help others. That just really stood out to me, and probably because, as most people who have had any job anywhere, I can point to all the times when leadership was not like that.
Yeah.
One of my former directors used to tell me, you don't need a title to be a leader. And I firmly believe that. I'm the one that would wait until nobody else was taking the leadership position and be like, well, if nobody else is going to do it, I'll do it. Okay.
Oh.
But I am, like it or not, whether I want to be or not, I am a natural leader. It is just part of who I am. You know, it feels so wrong to say that out loud.
Yeah.
It feels braggy, and I don't mean it that way.
It's just more proof I need to send you that article from the last interview.
Exactly. But the leadership is about taking responsibility to help others,
Mhm.
with the keyword being help.
Mhm.
Okay. And I wish that they would teach that in Harvard Business School. And maybe they do, and people just don't take it in. I don't know. Okay. But I know so many leaders and managers in so many places that I've worked that are trapped in the 50s. And y'all, the 50s are like 70 years ago now.
Yeah.
Leadership has evolved, and the people in leadership positions should be evolving with them. Virgin Airlines, what is his name? I can't remember. But take care of your people, and your people will take care of you.
Mhm.
And instead, too many people are about taking care of the stockholders, the shareholders.
Yeah.
And that does not take care of the people. And eventually that is not it's short-term profit over longevity for the company, whatever the company might be.
Yeah.
But every example that he gave went right back to that responsibility to help others. He had their backs. He seeks to understand. And he treats them like human beings. Where have we heard that before today?
I know. I love how there's always themes that just keep coming up. And if you've noticed, most of the time those industries are not closely connected. I mean,
Right.
all of them are connected, but not closely connected. It's not the same industry. They do different things. They focus on different things. They have different people, different tools. And yet the same kinds of things keep coming up. And many of it is about treating human beings like human beings. Such a crazy concept. But I know Simon Sinek talks about leadership. I know because I love him. I first started watching his TEDx Start With Why. And I know he's not the only one that talks about leadership, but I like the way that he does. Hello, screech the puppy for me. Yes.
This is Rizzo.
Aw. But it again keeps bringing back the point that whenever there are human beings involved, you need to treat the human being like a human being, because their whole life does not revolve around that job that you're asking them to do, or the task, or the project.
Exactly.
So everything else that is happening in their life is going to play a role in how they do that task or that project.
Yeah.
I know I've had to take a few times where I took a year out of my business because stuff happened. I needed to focus on me. I could not balance the two of them at the same time. And so it would be inappropriate of me to try to run my business and serve people, especially having to do with mental health.
Yeah.
If my mental health is really crappy, that's not being a leader. Being a leader is understanding and helping ourselves so that we can help the other people. I think, who was it? Lots of people. I know Emily Harrison was talking about it. I know Regan Hillier was talking about it, where you have to help yourself first, and then you have to help like your immediate family, and then of course you can go to the community, and then of course to your greater community, your country, and then like globally.
Okay.
But if you don't have that first step within you, all the rest of it that you're building on top is going to be so shaky. Don't be surprised when it falls apart.
Think about every safety briefing you've ever heard on an airplane. If the oxygen mask comes down, you knew exactly where I was going. If the oxygen mask comes down, what do? Put it on your neighbor? No, you put it on yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
The social meme about you can't pour from an empty cup. I've had people argue with that because they are mothers and they pour from empty cups all stinking day long. And it's true. Yes, you can. But there will come a time when you're not going to be able to keep doing that.
Yeah.
Another friend of mine compared it to, you guys know the spider plant?
Oh,
So
yes.
the spider plant that has all the little babies hanging down. Well, you don't water the babies. You water the parent. And then it takes care of getting the food to all those little additional babies, which I've got one in my kitchen.
Do you?
I love spider plants. I think they're so cool. And that's the thing. And we forget, or we choose not to take care of ourselves and worry about our mental health and our emotional health and even our physical health. And how many times have I scratched myself, okay, at work, and I'm on blood thinners. So scratches happen really easily. And this one bled a little more than normal, but it was a scratch. I didn't worry about it. Well, 2 weeks later, I'm in the urgent care because I have cellulitis in my arm because that scratch got infected. And I let it go for 2 weeks because it's just a scratch. It's not worth going to the doctor about.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all do it.
I'm just going to double check.
Yeah. And for anybody that's listening, please don't wait 2 weeks to go to urgent care. No. And I don't care if we're talking about mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. If there's something that's not right, go find somebody and talk about what's not right. Exactly. Whoever the appropriate somebody is.
I just wanted to check messages to see where Victor is. I'm going to guess it was an internet issue.
I get that impression.
Yeah, but that's okay. We'll still make this a conversation about his topic of leadership and where he was coming from. So I'm going to ask you, Mary, especially since you mentioned you were in retail too, and retail has a bad rap for leadership.
Yes, it does.
Can you tell us any experiences you have about good examples of leadership, even if it was just that small moment?
Yeah. The first one that has just been running through my mind the whole time I was listening to Victor was when I was in corporate. I had an immediate manager that I didn't have a lot of respect for, and didn't think a lot of. He's one of those people that just goes along. Okay. And he never really you don't feel like he's going to bat for you, anything like that.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm in Georgia and he lived in Missouri. Okay. And when I was in the hospital, after we found out I had that cerebellar stroke, he showed up in my hospital room.
Really?
He came to see me. Now, he was in Georgia for some other reason, but he made it a point while he was in Georgia to figure out how to get to my little town and my little hospital. Wow. And it totally changed my perception of the man because I saw that he really did care. He just wasn't one of those people that could verbalize that caring. And again, my language of appreciation is words. So if you can't say it to me, we have a problem. In the retail world, we have so many different types of managers in my particular hardware store. And there are some that are just right there. And I can go to them and say, I need a hug. And they'll give me a hug.
I know I did this earlier. I'm giving you a hug now.
Get a hug back. And it's so incredible. And happily, they are the majority of they're not the ones in charge. They're not the head honchos, but they are the majority of the people that are in management there, are wanting to get to know you. And, some of them are a little crusty until you get to know them. And then you realize that that's just their way of protecting themselves.
Yeah.
Now we joke with each other and everything. But the majority of them are good people and good people at heart and wanting to take care of their people. And they are hamstrung by corporate policies and by possibly managers above them who have different opinions.
Mm.
And that's something that it's worth remembering is sometimes it's not, I need to make myself a note about this. Sometimes it's not the immediate manager. It's the constraints that they have that they're trying to work under.
That sounds a lot like husband work, where it's not his immediate managers that are the issue. Like there's miscommunication and things just aren't being relayed in the way that they should. And so, it makes people upset because they're not understanding.
Yeah.
So that's his side. I do remember working in an architectural office where My boss was one of those people where he couldn't, I don't want to say couldn't, he very much could. He had trouble at work being able to show more of those empathetic, compassionate, more of the nurturing side, because he's very much a straightforward facts kind of guy, and that's what makes him awesome at his job. So when I went into his office one day, he was there before I got to work, and I was always the first one, almost always, to get to work. I would make the coffee, even though I didn't drink coffee. I'd clean the dishes because I was there, all that kind of stuff. He was there before me, and he stayed after me, and I didn't have a whole lot of work to do. So I went into his office one day. I closed the door really gently, and I was like, "Did you eat lunch today?" And he looked at me, and instead of saying anything to me, he just waited to see what was happening. And I was like, "Because I've noticed that you haven't come out of your office. I don't think I've seen you eat anything all day. Is there anything that I can take off your hands that you can have a chance to eat?" And he stared at me for like a whole minute, just like, I don't know what is going on. Okay, it felt like a whole minute. He didn't know what was going on. But by the end of it, he relaxed into it, because joking with him was very different than joking with everybody else in the office. You had to be really mindful, or so everybody else says. But he knew me well enough to know I actually cared.
Right.
Like, wholeheartedly, this is not any sort of malice at all. It was just like, this is not okay. So then he's like, "I think I get it." And then we had that conversation to be like, you working 80-hour weeks while I'm bored with 20 hours of work, what can I learn to help this not happen again? And it was weird because I was taking leadership over my boss. And yet he was such a good boss and a good leader that he understood where that was coming from, because that's the feeling that he leads with, even though sometimes it's difficult to have that feeling come across. And then I think it was the next week, I was signed up for a contract or construction administration course to do all of the contract and specification writing and like all of the admin that he was busy doing.
Sure.
And then I think it was 2 weeks after I completed that course where I could actually take work from him, where he sat me down and he was like, "Thank you."
Yay.
I was like, "Good. Next time you need something, just like teach me, a wise one."
Yes.
But I made a point of not trying to make it public. It shows how good his leadership was, that I felt comfortable enough to come to him when he needed a leader.
Exactly.
That's just
and it goes back to that ferocious vulnerability, and you had your own courageous something. Courageous communication.
I talk about
at the beginning,
if that's what you mean.
Say it again.
Courageous connection?
Yes, the courageous connection.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what that was.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's still one of my favorite moments with him, just because I'm picturing his face just trying to figure out what is going on. But I actually had a lot of great bosses in that company. Like, I loved every single one of them. They felt like family to me. One of my bosses was the age of what would have been my grandfather. But I did not grow up with grandfathers. They both died before my parents met.
Ooh, ow.
And so when we would have Christmas parties, he acted as if he kind of was my grandfather. He'd ask me about my life. He'd, sit on the couch with me. It's just like all the things that I think I missed out on. And it was only 2 years that I had known him. But it was beautiful, the time that we did spend together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love these great examples of wonderful leadership.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's check. We have about 9-ish minutes left of the show. So I don't know if Victor's coming back or not. So I'll do one last check because I want to be mindful. I do not see anything. Emails, nothing. No. Oh, I hope Victor's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to honor the end of his interview with any sort of insights or comments about his topic, about what he shared, about him as a wonderful leader, human being, anything that you would like, Mary.
I go back to, I could just read all my notes.
Sure.
Your words match your actions so that you can build trust and relationship, and you become a role model, and thus you become a great leader. Leadership is about taking responsibility to help others. That just really, that line speaks to me. And again, the fact that every example that he gave, he was showing that he had their backs.
Yep.
That they weren't just faceless numbers, but they were actually people that he cared about and wanted to help. And that to me is what makes a great leader.
I like that he mentioned with the helping others part, the initiative. Like it takes intention, it takes initiative, it takes a lot of compassion to want to lead this way. It is against the grain. It is against the typical teachings of the last 50, 70 years in leadership roles. And I know that there is a lot of conversation around leadership and what leadership should look like. And I do love that human aspect is coming in. But to have those people in the leadership roles right now is still feeling rare.
Yeah.
So I encourage people who do have that kind of leadership style where you want to treat human beings like human beings. I guess my asked for advice would be to maybe learn a little bit about assertive communication to help yourself get into those roles where it's not just chosen leadership, but like somebody has asked you to do a job in a leadership role where somebody else is basically vouching for you that you can be this amazing person. Find more of those connections. What's the word? Cheer yourself on. Like, get to those places.
Stop limiting.
Yeah, stop limiting yourself. All of that. It's just so important. We need more of you. Please do it.
Yeah. I used to say, I have no desire. I don't think of myself as an ambitious person, and I never really had any desire to be in management. I had done it 30 years ago in the Air Force, and I was like, that was enough. And what I found was then when I was thinking about, okay, we have a vacuum and I could step in and fill that vacuum, I wasn't even considered because I had been so verbal about not wanting a management job. When what the reality had been was not with that particular management team, but when that management team was gone, I would have loved to have stepped up.
Yeah.
Or I meant that I didn't want to take Laura's job away from her. But what they heard was I never wanted to do what Laura was doing.
Oh,
It's two different things entirely.
Yeah. So I'm going to officially call this the close of Victor's interview. Unfortunately, he could not rejoin us. We are wishing you well, Victor, wherever you are. Hopefully your internet comes back.
Yes.
But I hope we did honor you and your topic for the rest of your time. What I do want to do, Mary, is we have 5 minutes left-ish of the show. So if we think of the entire day, and I know you have lots of notes, I can't wait. What kind of favorite things would you just like to bring up and share with people as a recap for the whole show today?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's fun.
Treat humans like humans. I think that was the overarching theme through the whole day. Especially when you look at Tammy and her story of how treating that guy like a human being for the tail light led to him potentially saving her life in that later situation. You know, treat people like people. Everybody is a human being. And we build these divides in that don't need to be, well, okay. Yes, there should be some divides. We all have to have boundaries, etc. But one of my mantras is just because we don't think the same doesn't mean we're not both human.
Mm-hmm.
And you can still be kind to somebody, even if you disagree with everything they stand for.
Yes. Another pattern that I saw today was, oh, my mind just went blank for a moment. Oh, sorry. There we go. It came back. Light switch on. One of the other patterns is that everybody here today was a bit of a rebel. Much more of the change maker side, the disruptor side, that energy of like, I want to make a change. This particular thing is not okay. I am doing this thing or learning how to do that or sharing this message to help people get past that. Choose something better. Choose something with more growth. I loved that we had some rebels.
Yes.
They're my kind of people.
Mine too.
Mm-hmm. Remind me to send you that article.
Yes, please.
I will end the day by saying this. Today is our day for networking. I'm so excited. So in 32 minutes from now, we're going to be doing the bLU Talks networking. It is free for everyone. Just reach out to us. I can send you the link to register. It starts, in 32 minutes. We go for an hour. Yeah, we do the typical, what's your name? What do you do? Why do you do it? But on top of that, I ask a personal question in breakout sessions for you guys to get to know each other as human beings, just like we did today with our interviews. Yes, you have a business. Yes, you have a message. That's great. But we also want to know who you are as a human being because that adds another flavor or spice or layer to everything that you do. I have not come up with a question yet. Usually my mind is like, this is what we need to talk about today, about 15 minutes before we do it. So you don't get any sneak previews this time, but I do hope to see you. We are full of heart-centered people. bLU stands for business, life, and the universe. We really do believe that it's all connected. And so there are many different types of people in this community that are just so heart-centered. It feels like family to me, and I absolutely love it. I will also take this time to remind people that not this weekend, but next weekend, the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd of February is the Experts Bootcamp.
And if you haven't been, you need to come.
Yeah, Mary's been.
Yeah, last year. I still don't know how it wound up in my inbox, but I found out about it the day before and signed up for it. I'm already signed up for this one. I took vacation to make sure I would be available for this one.
Really?
Honest to goodness, yes.
Oh, that's so sweet. So then you know that we talk about how to land a TEDx. You know we talk about how to be on the top 5% podcasts. You know we talk about selling books and marketing your books and how to be authors and all kinds of things about getting your message out there. We have people like Lisa Nichols, who's coming to join us. We have a video with Deepak Chopra that Corey did an interview with him and had to pre-record. Cannot be there live, but we still get to have that conversation. Dr. Joe Vitale is going to be there again. He and I have had 3 times together so far. And last time he was at the boot camp, we had some fun. He played with me. He put on his money hat and he actually had, I think it was a Harry Potter wand. I was like, yes, Joe, play with me, Joe.
And as I recall, we had breakout sessions.
Oh, yes, we do. Corey teaches his dip method and his spider method, all kinds of things to help you craft your talk and sound pretty good on stage with that authority and credibility. Yeah, all kinds of things. So reach out to me for the link for networking. Reach out to us for the Experts Bootcamp. We will see you again tomorrow for day 4 of the bLU Talks Amplifier message, which starts at 10 a.m. Eastern on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And we end, 3 o'clock Atlantic is 2 p.m. Eastern is when we usually close. I will see you at networking. Much love, everyone. Bye. And then when I click the end stream, I sing and I dance.